Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekend program, Buddhism from India into Tibet in the 8th century. And this visit is sponsored by Lama Gonpo's students in Santa Cruz, and we're part of a group called Nagyur Nyingma Foundation, which is dedicated to bringing Lama Gonpo's teachings to the public and preserving the Longchen Nyingtik tradition, which Lama Gonpo is a transmitter of. So we have some preliminary prayers that are said before the teaching to generate the motivation that we're here to benefit all beings. So then we can begin. If someone needs some prayers, just raise your hand. And if you can follow along in English, if the Tibetan is new to you.
Welcome to you all today. And she says that, in fact, the teachings of the Buddha are very extensive. Various teachings that the Buddha has transmitted. But he will now be, this weekend, talking briefly on the teachings of the Tantras and talking about Padmasambhava, and then also be including doing some practice together as well. Yes.
Dela chile thapa ramba gaze yos. Tene thapa sumina, thapa china. Kaunza padesha gweni tela mamu chisumar. Dinanga dinona thapa ramba dinona do thapa jitsani je thapa yandi ranji shansung ke thapa chile thapa sumina. Tene anga shawala anga Taya Abayaka is similar. No, no, others is similar. They not talk about good.
So, but in the Nyingma tradition, the whole teachings of the Buddha can be divided into 9 main vehicles. The first 3 being the teachers of the sutras, the teachings transmitted to the hearers, the solitary realizers, and then to the bodhisattvas. That's included in the sutra system. And then in the tantras, there's the 3 outer tantras, the Kriya, Upa, and Yoga tantra. And there's the 3 inner tantras of Ma, Anu, and Ati. So the Buddha transmitted various teachings for the benefit of different beings, so that in order to be able to attain the minds of all beings and guide them on the path to enlightenment.
Tinanga Sena didn't the cheese the Jetta Lazama the Shongayama, cheese the Jetta Komore, Dinani, Chabra, Sanga Doji, Tamada Jetta, cheese the Jetta hasn't called the Komore. Now down the Yongayama. Jinga, Sanga Doji, Tabu cheat the Tarki Yama. Hasn't Komore.
So that in all the teachings that the Buddha has transmitted, in fact, these teachings of the Vajrayana, these essential teachings of the Tantras are very rare. They're not always transmitted continuously. So to be in a time in which the Tantras are alive is a very rare opportunity. Yes?
Oh, yeah. Jenna, some of the Chigi Jim said that Gombo in the Jim said that Hakuna Yahoda, Hakubo. Oh, yeah.
So it's very good to have an understanding of these teachings, to have an understanding of what Tantra is. Yes?
Yeah. Gonna must be for the baby Tado. Gonna must have done a sawyer. Over Then Jerozu Kono Chitapadana, John the Kun that yours. Oh, yeah. Some of the Tapadan Joa, Jitan the Hassan Combo head. The Garizana, one soldier also Chemuchi Polo Kolikisa, young son of Doji Tapanda. Mason. When a soldier also Chemuchi Polo Kolikisa, some of Doji Tapanda, you are married.
Sangi Ozal Temple.
Sanjay also Chambangama Pier.
Yes.
Or that Sangaji Tawana, Jitan the Jama Hato Combo head. Then one soldier also Chemuchi Kolikisa, young son of Doji Tapuchi, so married. Then Sanji Shaw Jata to the soldier last of Mamu John Pier Chimason. That's it. Some of the Chimason. Some of the tea. Sanji Shaw Justice Sergeant. Sanjay Momo Shabbat is a record. None of Sanjay Momo Shabbat here at Chimason. Some of the Chimason and those on the mark.
So at the time Padmasambhava then went to bed, he told the people there how rare the Tantras were. Many Buddhas have come to this world to transmit the teachings of the Buddha Dharma, and yet they have not all transmitted the teachings of the Tantras. The Tantras are very precious and rare. The previous Buddha, the Buddha of clear light, which was the previous age Buddha to the Buddha Shakyamuni, during that time there weren't the teachings of the Tantras. So when Padmasambhava went to Tibet, he really told them very strongly how precious and rare these teachings were that he had.
Then Mawana Sanji Mambo Shogara, some of Chi Songomares.
So later, many enlightened awareness beings again will emanate in this world, but they won't be teaching the Tantras.
The garden, Chimasono Johnson, son of Chimasono Johnson garden, not the Maro, Chi not the Maro, Sonum Chomutaka. Dog, Chi Ongareta, some of Gorgeta Chida, Leotucha, Kawaja the Marto, Kodo, Sonum in the Taco. This some of Gorgeta Puchi, Mayomati Taco.
Son Yung Wata Nika.
Oh, Sonum Johnson, Ross of Japan, no more of some. Tita Sonum Johnson, Ross of some of Gorgeta Puchi, not the wrong one. Oh, yeah.
So the reason why beings don't always receive the teachings of the Tantras is because of the lack of merit and the fact that beings get so caught up in the different afflicted states of mind that the enlightened awareness beings don't have the emanations to go on and teach the Tantras during the times when beings have little merit and have many afflicted states of mind.
Then Kawa Hodamebala, then Kawa Mongoya, Kawa Hodameba, he round Della, some of the chi, Sanji Sangaram, that some of the chi, Jin and Jikin, the Yonjamani.
In fact, it said in a very long kalpa, aeon of time, there would in fact only be 3 Buddhas who would be transmitting the teachings of the Tantras. Yes.
Mama Kawa Homa, La Kawa Kunkuzen, Kawa Kunkushi Shawa joined it. There is Sanji Wanshonga Jow, Taba, Sanji Wanshonga Jow, there is yours. The Tamala Sangre Jachin Chemodros. Mama Kawa Kawa Kunkuzen, Tella. Kawa Mala Kawa Kunkuzen. This is a Sanji Wanshonga Jow, then the Shabar. This is a Sangre Jachin Chemodros.
So it said that there are limitless kalpas of time, and in the kalpa Gonpo, there was one the Buddha called Sangi Nunshingi Gyalpo, the manifest Kimi Buddha, who transmitted the Tantras. That's
Lokachamara, Kawakama. Then Tabato, some of Tamabashin. Tata Sanji Shuza to be Tamadella, young son of Taba, very much Sanji Shuza Tabashin, then young son of Jashimo Draw.
So up until this time, a whole couple of eons of time, there had not been the teachings of the Tantras until the Buddha Shakyamuni came to this world. And then with Padmasambhava, the emanation of Padmasambhava, the Tantras were transmitted again. So this kalpa is known as the good kalpa, kalpa Gonpo.
Tate Kawa Shiva the Otter, Takawa Shiva, Kawa Shi something, Loma, Kawa Shiva the Otter. Kawa Meto Kobashi Shawa, Johnny Kawa Meto Good and News. There are Sanjin Jambi, Shiva, Tati Mato Satamba, the Grand Mojin. Kawa Kankosino, Kawa Shiva, the Una, Kawa Kankosino, Sanjin Jambi, Tata Matam Satamata, Mata Noja, the Pre-Hungary. This is a young son of Jashimo Tokorena.
Kalpa Gonpo.
Kawa Kankos.
The Kalpa Shi Jela. Kalpa Shi Jela.
Kawa Shiva, Kawa Shiva,
Shiva.
Shiva, Kawa Shiva.
Chopamare.
She just don't turn them, Shiva, Jira. You know, Kawa Metal goes the girl.
So it said that after this transmission by Padmasambhava, that Tantras in fact again will not be transmitted for many kalpas. In fact, more than maybe a million kalpas later, there will again be the transmission from the Buddha Manjushri, who Padmasambhava has prophesied will be like an emanation of him. This time it will be the kalpa Gungu. This particular eon of time, again these teachings will be transmitted. Yes.
Oh, the Kawa Tesa Maimiki, Nana, Summer Manjong, Kawa Tesa Maimik, Son Doji Tapu Chidi, Jitanaki, now you're younger Maresungla.
And except for these 3 times, these teachings of the secret tantras would not be transmitted into this world.
Oh, yeah. They got it, you know. Joan not the Maro, Joan to Sono Chong Taku. Magia Momo Gini, she is Sono Minutaku, some of the Jitapuchi Mashumade.
So the reason would be that the Buddhas couldn't transmit it, but because there wasn't the vessels, the beings weren't right to receive these teachings, to be benefited by them. That would be the reason why the tantras wouldn't be transmitted except these 3 times.
Yeah, Marazu, Message, Ganga, Sango Tangore, some of those Jitapuchi Tamashana, Soji Gonpo, the Toji Calico. The Garazina, Do Lamashina, Yanti Raja Shansum to Lamashina, Ga Chama Bala Suma Sabata, then it's Sanji Gonpo told you the Tani Yama. Chita say, Chita Yash and Dogo China, Kawa Jamism go Tamanadi, Sanji Gonpo told you Tani Yama. Then it's some of those Chikushina, then he some of Shavala Shina, then he teach it a girl, see Denga Sanjin, teach it a girl Sanjin, see some good Sanjin tonight. Then in Nanja Yoga, Mana, the Lamashina, Chichi, Sanji Kombo to Tapu. Then Chapel Chimotana. Oh, no, I'm not Chapel.
So we should contemplate the fact of the rarity of these teachings and how precious they are, since the sutra system, just practicing the teachings the Buddha taught in the sutra system, one takes countless aeons of time before one can come to a state of complete enlightened awareness. However, with the tantras, in the outer tantras, then within 16, 7 or 3 lifetimes, one can attain enlightenment, or in inner tantras, the Maha Anu and Ati, just within 1 lifetime, one can attain complete enlightened awareness.
China Maran message no, no, Shakespeare, the Market of the Honga, Murgiva Chansa Leo. The Market Jitan crowd on the Murgiva Chansa, then Murgiva, Jim Murgiva, he did the Mount, I didn't know. Murgiva Chimuchana Yawachi, Junction Yadachi, Tama, the Nochi. No Taina, getting your Mana Java Minor, Mara, Hatanachini, Kora Nikora. I didn't some much about young, they are, Kora is the Nazi.
So beings are in different states of consciousness and being involved in different actions, and due to the force of their actions getting carried on from one state of consciousness to the next. Beings who get involved in very negative states of mind and negative actions are just sowing the seeds for future suffering in the lower realms of psychic existence in degrees with their actions. Those incredibly negative states of mind leading to those hellish states of mental suffering of the hungry ghost, or lesser states, the animal realm, and the relative state of creating more positive action, more positive states of mind. Then there's rebirth in the upper 3 realms, the human, the anti-god, and the god realm.
In a 옛날에 거라 옛날에 나라도 다다 머리를 뭐지 토요라 머리 토요는 나라도 때도 그러는 거 대화 요소 되니 다 하면 뭐죠 대노성들은 나도 도서 대화 요소나 나 되니 야와 이따 타노서 인생 거리매라 하자가 되면 섬점을 쳐봐요 되니 나라도 거리 되는 데리 탈고 얘네 다음에 나라도 어다다 옛날 말은 더 나한테 시작하거든. 요거는 그러는 거 마음속에서 뭐 하자 된 거였어.
So we should realize that this opportunity we now have, having a precious human rebirth, is something very rare and precious. It's a state of relative bliss compared to the states of acute mental suffering, which one's consciousness can experience due to negative actions in the three lower realms, with the hell, the hungry ghost, and animal realm. These state of the present state of the human rebirth, or having done more virtuous actions, being able to experience relative happiness in bliss states in both the human and God and God love.
Alright. 얘랑 아주 내가 대화다 나는데 옛날에 제가 나시 된 거지 말은 돌아 지위 되면 기위 되면 나위 되면 지위 되는 거지.
However, even though we have this relative state of bliss and happiness in this human realm, we still have the pervading suffering. We have the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death. These sufferings still pervade our life.
지금 말도 머리 돈은 내 내가 말아. 머리 네가 내가 말해 쉬고 그러고 인심을 쉬고. 너무 마셔는 다른 시간에 말때 시선은 나도 다다 머리를 뭐 진디라 그 네가 그거 뭐야 뭐 혹시 제가 네 시험 내가 제가 하고 말. 되니 네가 그 고소하라. 되니
So we have now attained a precious human rebirth with full potential. How we develop is in our own hands. If we just create negative states of mind and negative actions, we're just going to lay the cause for having to experience incredible suffering, the hellish state of acute mental sufferings. Thus,
되니 다다 나랑도 다다 리더를 머리를 뭐지 토요를 머리를 뭐지 토노도 성하고 치고라 시고를 성하고 치고 마시는 세세가 상지 토고마 되니 성하고 치고 시고라 리더도 다는 정도 마소가 같이 뭐 리더 아무다 말아도 잘해 니세나 사던 저튼 말이라 성하고 치고 다다 성하고 담발 요리가 라마 그이신의 요리가 성하고 치고 지시 또 때라다.
So now we have received this precious human rebirth. We should really realize its potential. We shouldn't just let it go by, being caught up in the power of laziness, or just kind of letting it go by in a state of dull unawareness, of neither thinking positively or negatively, this kind of equality state of unmotivation. But rather we should realize how precious an opportunity we now have, whereby in one very lifetime we can, through this practice of the tantras, attain complete liberation.
제가 최고로 마시는 개월 마도와 선지 고모 통해서 해서 나오까 지내요 아마. 되네 멀게와 지치는 선지 나오까 따니요 아마. 되네 내 성악을 최고 시기다 하장 같이 뭐 성악을 최고 시나 라마 그이신에 된 치료나 되니 세치가 선지 덮고 덮도 만들어. 그때 아용가 말아서 따다가 밑에 올라가 강가가 그런 게 동다가 사고던 거.
So each and every one of you has to think for your own self what opportunity you have now. You have your precious human rebirth. You have this opportunity with meeting with a spiritual master who can guide you on the path. You have the opportunity to practice, and through the practice of these secret tantras, then in one lifetime you can attain enlightened awareness. So it's up to you to think individually of this opportunity that each one of you has.
일단 가는도 어떤 다 시험을 용으로 있다. 다 받다 거야 참이 다는 데 성지 공부 통나 라라 저기 성지 공부 통나 되니 등의 얼마 내지 그 성지 공부 통다라 되니 선전 탐지 그 통나 뒤라 그랬다 거 아라서 니게 돈 좋아 그래서 요것도 거를
So we should think carefully of this opportunity, which isn't just an opportunity for our own self-benefit, but we should also contemplate for the benefit of others, so that through oneself progressing on the spiritual path, one can also benefit other beings. Santa Cruz.
상어 마셨더니
Karen Santa Cruz.
상어 말랐어 제가 다 성을 넣지 타고 되지다 성을 넣지다 성되나 성을 넣지 타고 동네 이제 때나 소리 그 강가라 참적 지게 와 성도 되니 때 가르에서는 성도는 전설 가르에서는 말하도 선전 링한 말그 성을 친데 롱거를 성도 말되나 성을 치기는 미 링한데 다롱소를 다지 늘어이나 미 로가 뭐야 성어도 저도 비치기나 야마라 뭐뭐 도려라 말 뒤다까지 성도는 전선들이 고소 하마고 되게 성어 그 첼라 내가 시간에 나서면 고소 되게 럭다지 가가 아가마셔 내가 지나디 고소 성어 그 하던 싸지 뭐이래 다고 내가 럭다셔라 셔나 내가 럭다지 가가 아가마셔나 되게 뒤 성어 싸지는 다고 내가 럭다나 되게 고소 내려와지 뒤다 그 성도는 성도 못다 되게 성어 그 치는데 뭔가 차도 지냐고 말 차도 지는 데나요 되게 뒤냐면 성어 성도
So then, what are we talking about regarding the tantras? What exactly are these tantras? The name in Tibetan for this tantric vehicle is the Sanak Loji Tepa. Sang means secret. Nak is another word which can be used for Mantriyana or Tantriyana. And Doji is Vajra, the Vajrayana Tepa vehicle. So Rinpoche is saying, then why is it these teachings are secret, these teachings in the Tantras? The reason is that they are kept secret because all beings may not understand these teachings. They may develop wrong view towards them through lack of understanding. And this having a connection with these teachings which is so powerful and having wrong view towards them, thinking badly of them, is a very negative thing to do because these teachings are so filled with the power and blessings of the Buddhas. In fact, through developing wrong view, that being creates such negative action that they could cause their consciousness to have to go down to the acute suffering states through the wrong view being developed.
Oh yeah. 나 성을 옛날에 내가 식구 농거리는 실제 대해서 남제 대해서 그니요. 근데 실제 대해서 다시 다 남아셔는 저희 아빠 여가서
Sana karere kiran thana sonaso. Sana karere kiran thana sonaso. Jinsen Nunu Stomach Kaliman.
Summa Karina, some of the Jibu, drug on the fellow. Then some of the cheaper, the some of the Shella Shiji, there's some Nonji, there's some or cotton to you. Some of the Shilla.
Stomach in the case of Stomach in the Kirim for the weekend.
What that thing go. Some of them tell of the share on the Zoram Nigaris. Some of the publishing, share on the Zoram Nigaris. The chair of Zoram Gondega, then he Shiji Trava Yoka some, Ma other some the Chapel Chaboyash.
So regarding what is meant then by Sanak, the secret tantras, these are teachings transmitted by the Buddha which include both the Kerim and the Zokrim, both the developing stage and the completing stage practices of the tantras. And within the tantras there are 6 subdivisions, as we mentioned before. There are the 3 outer tantras and the 3 inner tantras.
Then the Hagomji or Nadaji or Chobajaji or Donji or Tane, Cherum the Pure. The Zoram denoted Samo Gombala Tela. Then it's Sanchi Zoram, Sami Zoram Tenere. Zoram, Samo Gomji Kutotela, Zoram the Cherama Tanda, Hagomji, Nadaji, Chobaji, the Dino Cherum the Pure. Then Kakar.
Now, Nangwala Yuri, Dinashi Mindful, Shindam
Cherama Hagomji, Nadaji, Chobaji, Tini Terega.
So, so these teachings of the Tantra then are including these developing stage practices, in which one doesn't just visualize oneself to be in one's ordinary surrounding, but rather one is transforming one's whole surrounding. One is using the visualization of oneself as enlightened awareness beings, or all enlightened awareness beings around one. And one is reciting mantra and doing meditation within this. In the completing stage practices, this would include the practice of the Salum, the practice with the channels, inner winds and essence drops, still maintaining one's transformation of one's phenomena, one's way of perceiving, doing these various practices with the inner winds and channels. Yes?
Yoga Sama, Yamsadana, Chiva, our Chi, Chi, then Chi, Tamamuna, Yamsamana, Sanji Tokamaret. He Yamsali Shana, Mabota, Koronga, Sanji, Yamsadana, Santamutunda Jiva.
So the 3 outer tantras are different developing stage practices, visualizing enlightened awareness beings, recitation of mantra, doing various practices, offerings, meditation, and they have slight differences within them, whereby the speed of maturation of one's awareness varies, so that with the Kriya it takes about 16 lifetimes to attain enlightenment, with the Upa about 7, and with the Yoga about 3 lifetimes. So talking about the 3 inner tantras, then we have the Maha Yoga, which is basically a developing stage practice. We have the Ana Yoga, which is a Zogrim, which is a completing stage practice. Which I mentioned earlier, we have completing stage practices which are both with characteristics and without characteristics. The Salam being a practice with characteristics. And then the final, the Ati Yoga, which is talking about the Zopachampo, the view of the great perfection, which is the one, the completing stage without characteristics. Yes?
다 제름 되지도 아들 요가 제름 되지도 그러나 단다지 제름도 다 되는 일 하고 마시는 탑치비를 봐 되고 탑치비를 봐지나 근데 너무 싫은 거잖아. 이자고 싶다. 근데 제로서 제대로 셰프도 좀 내가 나오셔. 그래서 좀 전에 맞아. 노아키 셰프 저거 송거 셰프 전통 피지 셰프도 돼요. 어때 진짜 제로 거 아마나 저는 못 해. 셰프도 좀 돼요.
So regarding this developing the stage practice of the inner tantras, then one has the developing of one's own phenomena, one's own surrounding, which is being transformed. One no longer perceives the actual as it is, but rather one's having the enlightened body mandala of the way one perceives one's surrounding and one's being. One has the enlightened speech mandala, the way one perceives all sound, and one has the enlightened mandala, enlightened mind mandala, which is the way of recollection. Yes.
노아키 셰프가 말하던 동물아 거기서도 신노진 지iten됐다. 대랑 선녀나도 나오는 지iten을 감데 마이비 신노진 지iten 거 감데 산지 상금 공고 산지 상금 대상 예다 어 내가 이니 지iten 단지 산지 상금 거 디나라 샤인 큰라서 말하는 그거는 마이비 샤인 큰 대상 예다 어 내가 디노나 디니 님의 단데 다이 단라서 그다음에 진이 상지 상금 뭐마다 공고
So in the first mandala, we transform from this ordinary world we have around us to our whole perception being that of a pure land. Within the pure land, visualizing the celestial mansion, the celestial abiding place of the enlightened ways being. So one is visualizing the enlightened ways being on the lotus, sun, moon seat. In the midst of this celestial mansion, in the midst of a pure land.
자이카 옛날 가서 고나자 마이미. 근데 설때 나사와 나테셔서와 옛다 오마 나가와 자산 카라와타가 되나 신대상 했다. 이 자연 그거나 야메 그 mambo. 근데 메타가 잡아 치지 정올라서 호성 그 저거 장통라서 샤다 네토라서 같은 치 치라도 되나 말로 지iten나 마이미. Tana di go. Hajan desha yang go.
So when we meditate, it's important that we should do so with not a solid materialistic concept. So when Jesus says we're talking about the celestial mansion, it shouldn't be something we conceive like this present room, but rather it's something which is occurring very brilliantly, externally yet internally. It's totally unobstructed. It's not something solid. It's very radiant. It's of a light structure, but nothing materialistic or solid. One's whole phenomena is transformed into extremely beautiful perfection. One has bathing pools, flowers, everything that one can see in the most perfect celestial way, occurring very light, unobstructed, is visualized.
이 자기 거기 사실 당시에 르모치 있죠. 갔다 르모치 갔다 나서 있죠. 근데 말 나나네서 땅나 팔아지네. 저는 근데 내가 말 토하기나 말 쓰이더니 뭐야 잠시 나오는 거 근데 자고 근데 도로 좀 살아서 오면 근데 정강도로 르모치 정선 나시 근데 얘도 싫어서 그 다다가 나가는 저 삼지면 봐. 이 내가 세나 내가 사나 내가 저야 매와 말아서 내어도 세상에 돌아오래. 그때 내어 다 하나 다 그거 돌아오네. 되니 세나라 말아서 어제 매워. 되니 되나래. 매도도 요하라. 매도 되라. 말아서 매도나 나서나 자꾸나 어거시 그거 지금 아무도 없이가. 내가 그때는 말 너가 손하라. 매도 더더라. 쳐야라. 너야 되나 쳐야 되나 매워. 되니 치지 정말 요하다. 치지 정말 말아서 정말 고사나 얘라 그 가나 라서 그 정말 사오 고사나 라서 세와 그 가나 사오로 내가 그거나 그거는 대단 참아 용제세 말아서 지대미 쳐서 그거나 정말 그거나 소고 내가 사오 그거나 소고 내 더블 상관 거다 고마 말아서 얘라 그 그거나 참아 또 이거 세도나 때문에 저거 세 가르 사지 가르 사삼나 되니라 현지 저기 이거나 되니 상관을 되나지.
So in this developing stage of practice, we are visualizing everything to be perfectly celestial as a pure land, everything purified. One's surroundings and the ground wouldn't be like anything solid, it'd rather be like a cushioned bed. You'd be walking in and everything would be giving on you with a spring balance. Nothing would be rough or stony, but everything would be smooth, bouncy, celestial. The fruits on the trees would never drop and fade. There'd be continuous ripened fruits coming from the trees. The flowers would never fade. Everything would be continuously perfect. So this is the type of surrounding that one visualizes in this way. That's
다 들었던 다 하자 못 보래. 다 말하던 지대 가고 그 내가 그거는 그 제놈 받자 뒤려고라. 답변하나 따라고 말. 답변하나 지도도 손지상아 지도니 탐지 된다. 요. 내 봤을 때는 고마. 지금 네 주말에 나랑 그래 주말에 되는 요 말. 정말 진짜 이거는 말. 너서 근도 탐지가 나와라. 요.
So when we're talking about the Pure Land, then we're talking about that state which is spontaneously complete. It doesn't involve anything, any work to accomplish it. It's naturally perfected. And there wouldn't be the case of the grasping mind being involved, like there may be many beings there, but there's not this feeling of, oh, that's mine, that's yours. Everything is just theirs in perfection, spontaneously complete for each and every being.
되니라나 사건 거나 샤니지 거나 지선 정말 거나 그런 뭐지 거나 거나 손저 호미 거나 라나 하디소 또 지선 컨탄지 상공 거라 대라니 하디소 또 거마사나 그 하도 거 되니 그라 말아도 가도 지금 린다 마이 그 자청 거라고 저나라 어떤 다 담아고 되니 제대로 가는 생전 탐지요 저 탐지 그 선지나 상처 세화 탐지에 상인이 다제 선지 상서 못 먹고 어디라고.
So one should visualize oneself in this developing stage of practice to be the central deity of this Pure Land, occurring and yet being the nature of light. So you shouldn't feel yourself to have a physical solid body, but rather to be occurring in the form of the deity, whether it be Dharma, Tara, or Amazama, or whatever deity it be. You are the deity, and yet occurring very vividly, the light very brilliant, but like rainbows, and not being solid, completely unobstructed. And then one is surrounded by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas amidst this Pure Land.
내가 저 접사 탐지 저기 접사 탐지 다시는 거나 저기 접사 탐지 많이라고 상고 이 사건 거나 뒤 농어들 다시는 저 성은 장을 타서 kom 저나 저 접사 탐지 제가 정정하서 말하는 지든 거나 저는 몇 번더라고.
So basically, then one is transforming. When one's transforming, Tantra really means, in the developing stage, transformation. When transforming one's ordinary surroundings into the Pure Land, one's transforming all the sounds one hears. If they be like loud sounds of motors or whatever, everything is transformed into the sound of mantra. mantra. And if you're reciting, let's say, the enlightened one is being generously the Buddha by his compassion, then all sound will be automatically from the sound of this mantra.
이 타나무 다그다 정말 시아드가 정말 탐지 다 치기랑다이 상태는 거고 다 시종 그만 정말로 그런 분들다가 거고 다 탐지
Whether it be a big sound or a small sound, motor car or whatever, all sounds that just are transformed in one's perception to be but mantra.
그는 알아서 나도 탐지가 나도디 그런 탐지고 나도로 너무 딱하게 탐지가 일단다가 딩어마 또 본거 라면 사 제대로 탐지 더 이상 좀 라 탐지 싫어하죠 그 때문에 진이 나도 아무가 얘기 너무 나도 매번 떨어지고.
And then regarding one's state of awareness, one is not going under the power of the afflicted dualistic subject-object conceptual mind, but rather one is resting within the state of awareness mind, free from the afflicted dualistic conceptual mind.
이때는 공나디 공을 연된 거 공나고 또 그디 공공공다나디 나가데 맞아 그리 받듯이 노아 당시 상지 상금 차랑세 가 용거 뒤다고디 공거는 공고는 뒤다고 어래 말아서 상지 뒤그 거기나 상지 공공거는 뒤랑제 때 뒤모 상지 되니 나로 세로 진지는 당시 상지 상금 때째 들어놓어 또 뒤다고디 공고 연우 전체 돈독되나
So the reason why and how this method of the Tantra works is that one is able to transform one's ordinary way of perceiving, and through meditating, continuously meditating in this way of rather seeing things in a gross, worldly way, seeing everything in a purified way, one actually accomplishes that state of purification. One attains the enlightened awareness state within the very pure land. So one is continuously maintaining the outer world, this world we're in and wherever, in doing one's practice in between times, continuously seeing it as a pure land. And the beings within it oneself being the enlightened awareness beings.
근데 내가 뭐 그러는데 너가 가서나 사건 거는 너가 뭐 그런다 저거는 너가 달라서 그 나라는 민들 그만하지 아니 상적거 너가 달라서 요지 알아 공부한다 공부 냠냠도나 들이 너무 좋은다 그만하지 아니 나를 리더 야야나면나 상적트나 너가 셔 뭐 공부도
Through the strength of a lot of meditation, then one may have the perception, oh, do I have this body or not? One's whole perception is naturally so transformed through the strength of meditation that one's whole physical body then becomes less materialistic, less solid. One begins to have a feeling that, oh, maybe this isn't a solid physical form that one has anymore.
나라도 때다 그러나 사지 생각 때문에 째어요. 나라도 사기 째어요 왔었나. 때다 답하고 말 때다 말. 가시게 때다 그러나 사지 생각 째째 나라도 다 째어요. 손에 연하가 맞지가. 요 인지 뭐지요.
One shouldn't have a doubt regarding one's potential to transform, to think that maybe one, whether one can or cannot attain the pure and enlightened awareness state is a potential for each and everyone who does this practice continuously to attain that state of the enlightened awareness being.
근데 내가 회사나 제가 왜 상담을 회사. 회사나 이제 가면 돼. 나라도 치려 와. 그래서 겁나 상황을 쳤어. 나가 거나 나가게 칠게라 요. zaman 강 제대로 한거 고는데 인중 제대로 전도
Di Sampa o di Daka.
제가 와는 생각 못 잡자 제가 고도 마마 고나 들어져 그래 되는 하고나 하자 그래 뭐 사고나 하고나 소지 성공나 소지 저 마마 가나 요 마마를 저지가 회사 회사
So in fact one should come to understand that through the power of one's own mind, whatever one perceives can come about. If one perceives in a positive way, positive things come about. If one perceives in a negative way, negative things come about. So if one is like doing a meditation like this, one can attain the pure land from that one speaking. If one is getting caught up in negative things, then negative things come about.
Yes. 뭐 자기가 와라 나시는 때나 재미지요. 재미지요는데 니마다가 코스터거. 나 땅인기나 삼이. 땅땅거. 땅까지 저까 와가 필링도 저 땅라 땅도 닌자가 땅도 니마 땅거리시 땅도. 너 뭔가 땅거 거야. 땅 거니? 제가 너 뭔가 거니 제가 코로 땅거 Gonpo Gonpo linda maji ko linda takajas ni ko tombati Gonpo takala so ni tak na tak ni jali ni tombata o nyanja ma takasa ja sami ni chi ni ni ko chimse kanga kumba kanga tawa so sara Gonpo takala so ngamba gona tada chejere yo ngamba ko bara.
So there's a story of this old lady in the town of Varanasi in India, and she had this conception of herself being a tiger, and she used to meditate on herself being a tiger. And every day, for many years, she continuously would meditate on herself being a tiger and wrathful and sort of feeling she was this very tiger. And in fact, it was said that she actually became that tiger, and all the villagers took fright because suddenly they heard the roar and they actually saw a tiger and they all fled from the surrounding houses. And this is an example of the force of the mind. In whichever way one perceives that can come about. So this is an example of a negative way of conceiving oneself to be a wrathful animal of that kind. But the example is in the force of one's own thinking or perceiving that can bring things to actually occur.
Teni tenashe gato thagum na sanji shankam gona jamati nawa thamche sanji shankam chakra rana thag mor sanji rawra gona pai gona chakone tanaje.
So similarly, if we in a positive way perceive all our surrounding to be that of the Pure Land, or our own being to be the light-most beings, or sound to be purified, then that too can be accomplished and we can attain enlightenment as such. Cosa te ya lenguna te se nasi kamati?
Ya tena.
If
Ya tena wache koma na ko.
if people are getting stiff, they like to stretch their face a little bit.
Kama ni so ga ya.
Just for a few moments to stretch your legs. Dilum digre? Dilum digre? Zaten savaşta gire?
Toma. Teni. Ada dona.
Not do wala. Not do the that you're not to catch away. Not that's indicate that no. That kind of that again. Deep one you down the yuna that can no down the you
Jinna. No jinna. Ah na ko jeri ka.
But just seek cheek neither not kind of that no. Here's what much of that you can do.
됐네.
So begin again.
그냥 알아서 산지 상금잖아. 가리 있나 탐자라는 거 세우다라네요. 상금 나한테 너무가 이제 탐자도 다 근데 산지 상금 거나 그냥 알아서 산지 제거는 세우다라네요. 세우다. 근데 나라도 너무가 탐자 홍보 20만대 전에 근데 산지 상금 찾아서 가요 거. 근데 나라 산 파트로거나 지금 산지가 때 연바다 하고 돈에 산지 상금 들어가는데 사람들 들어가서 들어요 와. 라는 그 산지 상금 금 이 세가 한 거지. 세에서 로나 나도 당시 썼잖아. 20만대 제려오나 때 산지 상금 들어 산지라는 걸 난그 세우러 왔다. 잠바나 그 연어 말. 라는 산지도 랑게 봐서 세도 산지 뭐라. 어땠더라. 됐다 마이베 뭐지야 뭐지니 누가 뭐지나 선배 누가 뭐지나 그 저와 좀 같이 보셔 봐대 영 가서 하시게라. 내가 생각 어쩌가 생각 누가 뭐 개야 뭐 보지니? 제가 그 되니 영 가서 하시게라. 네, 다 너무 개야 될 이심한테 저는 내가 생각 내가요. 근데 생각한테 제가도 러나 소지 생각한테 제일 한거 맞다. 아무리 장막 가야요 말다 하고 그래.
So it's important everybody should understand that here let's talk of the power of the mind in transforming, meditating, like has been taught on all surroundings, being as the Pure Land, oneself as the enlightened awareness, being within the mandala, that one attains that state through this practice. But in actuality, this is all dependent on the mind. One shouldn't think that the Pure Land is something external to oneself, something other than where one is now at. Rather, it's a matter of talking about removing of the afflicted states of mind through practice, through practicing, meditating in this way, being able to transform and overcome the habitual power of the mind, going underneath the afflicted states of mind and developing that state of the actual awareness mind, that the Pure Land arises. It doesn't arise as something other, something external to ourselves. Similarly, if one allows oneself to be involved in negative states of mind, negative actions, these are through allowing the mind to proliferate in these afflicted states of mind. And it's from these afflicted negative states that one reaps the suffering of having to take rebirth into lower states of conscious awareness of acute mental suffering. So one should understand that it's through the force of one's meditation, through the force of one's mind, that everything comes into being, and that the state of attaining enlightenment isn't just a matter of going somewhere external, it's a matter of whether or not one purifies one's own mind of its afflicted states or not. That's it.
그래서 사생까지 또 정신은 아대요가 그 마야가 그 또 정신이잖아요. 다 디기를 망지 잡아 당도 마스터. 라마 다 노노 나와요. 뭐가는 건너는. 아대요까지 진짜 제름 그 진짜는 노노 하나지.
So that's a very brief overview of the developing stage practice of Tantra, of the Mahayoga section of Tantra.
다 안에 없을 때 됐어. 그죠? 안에 여기까지는 싸우면 나도 싸우는 것마다 저 안에 여기까지 저 조름 전에 싸우는 전에 제발 다 지금 싫으면 다 조름은 안에 여기까지 좀
So then we get on to the completing stage practice. First, we're talking about the caring, the developing stage. Now, Zogren, the completing stage practice of Ani-yoga.
또 고마 안에 여기 고마라 센터를 거냐 가가지 생근도 또 때에 쉬고 생근도 또 지는 또 많이 가야 다리 빨 난가 안에 여기 고마 저런 거나 어디라지고.
So within the context of Ani-yoga, which is a completing stage practice with characteristics, one still is doing this within the context of one's awareness. One is separating the awareness of one's mind, which is involved in the dualistic conceptual way of seeing things, that analytical mind, which gives rise to the afflicted states of mind, one is placing in a state of mind free from all this, that state of intrinsic awareness, ripa. And this practice of the Ana Yoga then is done within the context of the yin and the ripa, so that uniting of the yin, the sphere, the space, and that state of awareness. That's it.
다때라 런에 사고 너는 마이비 상동고 되네 대 런게라 사금 사 런에 사금 되네 런에 사금 리 제가 됐다가 사금 사금도 너무 잡았다가 들어가지고 그래서 돌지시 들어가지고 뒤에 왜서 싸고마 로마 정마세네 들어가지고 섬공고 아니요 그라 괜히 런 사다고 타라 나도 자선처럼 다니고 뭐 나라도 가지고 뒤치고 리 되는지 거는 거라 뒤에 거기 또 리나 나라도 리 정말 리나 자다 하나 먹어래 자동으로 자 최소 단체 자 하장 먹어래 다 뒤는 거자 조수부터 보고 뭐저 자 엄마들은 되니 나가 니만 남았다 너무 저거 니선랑다 들어지 공터 들어지 와 되니 대우 소시 다소리 zonde 짝짝 거 봤다 랑거 짝짝 거 봤다 야 니도 좀 니도 때 최근 나만도지 최대야 최대 거는 거다 근데 네가 왜 됐다고 금 근데 이 나라마 가르모 너는 정말 마음에 들으니요 또 스모르기 대어 소시 많으면 스모 내다 자 지고야 돼 차버 조서고 거다 되나 되니가 자 오마가 이런이 야라요 맞아 나타나는 jamdani yarayo namjapo jalom dani tarayo dani nago dani nasıyor dani yarayo dani san dina nasıyor sağoman dana çektina kademi da kasımdı kademi da zatamca otomo cerasın sağoman dongonbo ya şar hacan sam hacan tamam dana sadece sanni şemadan dana gongo
Ye person agan mapo yumpa Roma
Andere, ima karbo, ima marmo, etarata. Chimido, ye gita marmo, yom gita karmo, tanda yar.
So, visualizing oneself to be the deity, the enlightened awareness being, such as Rinzin Doji Chu, the knowledge holder, Vajradharma, blue in color, and in the form of, in the center of this deity, then there are three main channels which are visualized. In fact, there are many, many different channels within the being, but here this practice is done visualizing the central three channels, the central channel itself, the Uma, being traveling from the very crown of one's crown chakra to four fingers below the navel, this being the thickness of the fourth finger about, very straight like a bamboo shoot, being blue in color, it's inviting the Dhamma, being very light, like a sesame nut, being having its whorls, the petal being very thin like the petals of lotus, having these four qualities. Then there are the two side channels, the Roma and Gamma, which are white and red, which go from the nostrils up, around and down the side where the central channel is, down to the four fingers below the navel, one's navel button, where they unite into the central channel, this point. these being thinner like the size of a stalk. Yet all the channels are visualized, occurring vividly, yet not being something solid, being the nature of light, translucent and clear. And in the male and female, the color of the Gangma and Roma is exchanged from red to white and white to red. Yes?
다 자모 비전센터 하셔 심으셨구만. 러러지 러러바데 라 다가서 내려지는 머지나 마땅히 잠시셨구만. 예, 다성가 하나 더 맞다. 코너도 내려이나 저 제рем이 하셔서 하셔 전화가 걸어. 러러는 사케마나 심으셨구만. 심으도 장나디 장니 다도들 봐. 이제 심어 이용 걸 마셔.
So here, this teaching is not being such that that you will go ahead now and practice like this, but it's just been explained, a brief explanation being given. In fact, these teachings are kept very secret. Normally, one would have the Sawasum, the three-root deity empowerment before this was explained in full. So this is a brief explanation. So this practice of the Anayoga then is a practice, which is before one sits in the 7-point Varachana position, one's visualizing oneself as a deity, the different channels, and then one is taking in the wind, one is taking it in the wind and then holding it. After holding it, then one again lets it out, and then again one takes it in, and then again holds the inner air, and then again one expands, like this continuously. Yes?
이시치는 말한도 뇨놈부터 제가 말해. 뒤다 다들 장가지 나게 말하지. 남자서는 지나서 말한도 멋지가 녀마치가 녀모하고는 니트 제동 정자적이다. 이시가는 세지 선이 체크가 섬주 선이보다 녀마치가 제가 말. 인생 찍거나. 이시가는 제가 요하는 말도 하고 요 말. 녀모하고는 아무것도 팔아서는 서로 들어지고 니트 제동 정자적이다. 또 녀모하고
예시 숨쉬서니.
아,
예시 숨쉬서니 그래?
숨쉬 체크가 숨쉬 설명다 이런 말.
체크.
사. 체크. 야 숨쉬 설명을 상대도. 이제는 숨쉬 설명이다. 나도 되는 거 나는 남아 우리 선인 거 남나라고 할 때 때문에 제가 와. 어디 녀모하는 것들은 너무 제가 와.
So in this practice one is practicing to overcome the impure karmic winds which travel within one's body and to replace them by the awareness winds. In fact, at present, at this time, then, an ordinary being within a 24-hour period would breathe in 21,600 breaths of karmic wind and only 32 breaths of pure wisdom wind. So at present, beings are mainly involved in the karmic winds.
근데 저 전화대 말아도 너무 공부는 또 그, 얼른 이 시가 너무 쫑쫑 공부야. 얼른도 정말 얼른도 리파레이션이 공나 이 시가 너무 고나데 녀모하고 얼른도 말아 녀녀녀녀. 이 시가 너무 녀모하고 얼른도 말아 녀어서 이 시가 너무 야라 뭐뭐 시또 체리로. 또 체리 얘는보다 전화대 또 체리서는 아이고 이 라운드 거 연단 뭐 되지요. 듣고 답지 말아 딱. 근데 이식을 나왔다고 연대 다 좀한테 저래요.
So this practice is aimed at increasing the wisdom wind, and this is done through uniting one's rikpa, one's state of intrinsic awareness with one's wind. So uniting one's awareness with the wind, one is able to overcome the tendency to involve in the karmic winds. These afflicted winds then, through uniting the awareness with the wind, cease to arise, and in their place the wind of Yeshe, the primordial awareness winds, arise.
그래서 어야. 근데 along the doors 있잖아. 되게 말아도 리다 하죠 영모라는 거야. 리다 정확하게 하면 근데 누가 예전말라도 나가라 벌거나 along the door 벌거. 예전말라더니 섬에 나도 누가 뭐나 나가라 벌터는 저나 가르쳐 요. 자가도 어떻게 하셔도 되나. 이제 그 나가라 벌는 게 되나 along the door.
So, through doing this practice of the inner winds, then one is able to purify these afflicted winds, and the various qualities of the path naturally arise with the increasing of the wisdom winds. Such ordinary qualities as the body becomes very light, doesn't smell bad. In fact, one eventually comes to, if one's an incredibly great practitioner like Milarepa was, one eventually can just fly in the sky through the power of having controlled the inner winds. In fact, it wasn't just Milarepa, there were in Tibet various great masters, also in India, who through the force of this practice of the salam, the channel from the winds, could actually fly in the sky.
같이 전세 때나 뭐뭐샤지나 가서 뒤좀 때라기나 하자 먹나고. 이 너무 전화한테 상지 공부도 다 만나라 때나. 너가 전화 연다 뭐뭐 연지야. 되니 너무 말아서는 아니고 너무 와서 이시가 너무 되지나. 되니 상지 공부도 저기 탔더라. 때가 연다 뭐뭐 잘 나왔다고 연다 하자 뭐뭐야. 다 뭐뭐 샤나 뒤좀 만나고.
So it's through this practice that the afflicted states of mind and winds, because the mind being united with the wind, are overcome, and through uniting one's awareness with the wind and awareness, through the practice, the wisdom winds increase, and the stage that all the afflictions and afflicted states of mind are purified, and one attains enlightenment through this practice. However, it is but a brief summary of it. Yeah.
그래서 때는 어느 거나 담나 먹고 거라 내가 먹었지요. 다음날 내지들 다음 그거 때 라는 샤카. 다음날 내지들 라. 다음날 전에 너 갖고 때 전에 그런 거 말이 처음 말해. 다음날 전에 말한도 쇼가라 지민이한테 되고 때라 다음날 내가 때라 lam jamna tela tabga sanji kongo tabja ke tab sanji me shaba de gonji ya tab sanji kongo tabja ke tab chota jara ini da go da kunya tab la de ya tela tena di go chawara chimi ranki na chawara chimi nyam de da no jo jab jo de yogo ja se ma ji de o tela kora along go na tela tabga sanji me shaba sanji kongo tabja ke tab shoji jawa se dang jawa la choba phe ya shoji jawa se dang jawa 뭐야나 이제 쇼지 자와 세상 지와라 가로가 탐지 지지 초발했잖아 요거지가 그것이나 이따거디 선제 공부 내도 섭지 그 타지잖아요 진짜 타지랑 나도 내가 아무 거고 때는 지금
So within this practice of the channels and inner winds, also is the section of which is called the tablang, the method path. And this is a teaching of the Tantra, which isn't at all mentioned or included in the sutras, which is the method path, whereby through the unity of the male and female uniting and having meditation together with control of the inner winds, with specific meditation that is incredibly skillful means to purify these afflicted states of mind and winds, and to give rise to the primordial awareness state. It's a way by which incredible offerings are given to the enlightened awareness beings of the 10 directions. It's a very expedient, skillful means whereby in one very lifetime one can attain enlightened awareness if one knows how to do the practice correctly. Yes.
근데 노블은 토마마밀이나 그때 자tam자 저기가 말. 상을 돌지 답게 잡지 코나. 뒤다 그뒤 성고들. 또 마서나 근데 가시를 넣어 막을 가시를 넣어 막고 말해. 하마군을 넣어 막고 말해. 근데 그이던 거래. 그이다나 그거 14천 버려. 근데 그거 여와가 여와로 그래. 뒤다 그뒤 성고는 되게 성을 성 거를 점점들이요. 대다나 뭐지요.
So the reason why the tantras are kept secret is because one doesn't want beings to develop wrong view towards them. These teachings, the method path, not even the sound of them is heard of in the sutra teachings. And they're kept secret specifically so that beings don't develop wrong view towards them, since them being such powerful and blessed practice of to attain enlightenment, that if a being develops wrong view, they cause such a negative action that their consciousness may be propelled to the lowest acute states of hellish mental suffering just from developing wrong view. Yes.
저런 거 걸려면 자동만다. 근데 저런 거는 들어가요 말. 근데 저런이 저런 야 니시 쳔벌 저런이 저거 쳔벌 니시 쳔벌 쳔도 와저 쳔벌 남 얘와 달라 잡으려.
So within the tantras, within them, even them, there are degrees of strength, of expediency of the practice. Over the care in the developing stage practice, the Zogrim, this practice with the channels, inner winds, is more expedient. And then even more special than this, there is the practice of the great perfection. Yes.
근데 내가 나외들라 자동들라 이게 청구를 되는데요. 이게 정전 감을 하셔. 이게 건재 당직비 되네 이게 쇼르쇼 되네 청구를 되지 이게 자동 되면 잠잠 뭐지요. 이 말은 인다나 마다베 잠천 동쪽에 지산님 사체종 저 당처럼 내가 뭐지. 잠든 영어 그다가 잠든 영어에 상대사가 제사가 싸우네요. 저 당시 총을 그 내가 당시 시고 총을 전화한테 이 잠든 당시 시나 이 시가 너무 좋아. 이 시가 너무 좋아서 마다 걸리는 거 잠든 그 가다요. 총을 전화 못 하래. 총을 전화 이 잠든 당시 쪼그 전화가 이 시가 너무 좋아. 근데 소지 공부 도착을 타만으로 되는 용. 그래서 이 시 제사가 너무 제사가 나온 것 같은 용.
Sa Nishisatik?
자, 동그란 제사님. 자, 초종. 최종 라브랑 뭐뭐 리인다나.
Dunta Nishisali?
동그란 제사님. 정감 생각하시는 사람인데.
Jadi yang dikpa cewa Nishichik mali? Dikpa cewa Nishichik.
내가 치와 오마라가는 내가 치와 니시 잡지네.
사
그래서 담제 중국 비정고. 중국 그 빈다 바시고.
사 didn't you
든지
So within our being then we have 72,000 different channels, but the main central channel is the channel whereby the knots have to be untied. In fact, there are 21 main knots which tie up our central channel, and through the practice of the salam, then, which includes various practices of various yogic exercises, the tukos, which is specifically done to help untie these knotted channels in the body. Because through the channels being knotted, then the wisdom wind is unable to enter into the central channel. So one has to untie these various knots so that the wisdom wind can arise to full potential and attain enlightenment through its realization.
Then I got a megom to the yard. Megona, a running a little sama megona, a gunka hasam, Tomo you go with it, go not it, Lila Hatam Sawa Chemo Barions. Sawa Chemo Barion, then I go over it, then I go not it. Tea Yodanga, no more judges of Tomo, you know the no more a long time to make issuing along issuing a make some. Then I jena, Lila Tower, Lila Conjay on Mogo, then Hajanga Darajo, no more time to tell a jump to the other.
Also, the salam practice includes the practice of the development of the tumo, the inner heat practice. And this is a practice where one goes to incredibly cold place and develops this inner heat, whereby one no longer needs to wear clothes. The inner heat just begins to blaze, and through the blazing of the inner heat, one is able to purify the pneumo, these afflicted states of mind, and give rise to the primordial awareness realization, the wisdom winds.
Then Ranga Lindana, Sturna, Sandal, Javana, Yangana, Devana, Samina, Saga, Dama Momodik, Tinona, Sanjana Marlonzen, Mushaba, Noatai, Rishon Johnson, Toyota, Jar in the Hatamam, Santa Tina, Gongo. They're gonna, he is Sadi, then it, over the Member Tinanga. They're not the Holy, they're not the teacher about the Tamchila Puna. Then it's so Jabba. So Roger, Jali, Hajan, the Chabat the Tochiba, Jabba Janjora, Numo, Jabba Tamjara, Hajan is Dr. Chiva. Then he, Tanajana, then he, Vanja, young God, Choga Chabaji, Gavi Shela, Gawaji, Sherang Jalachi. This is how long ago than Tamjama, the Cherry.
So the 84,000 different states of afflicted mind are overcome in this practice. One with the practice of the inner heat then is giving rise to the inner heat, then causing in the crown chakra this little hum to melt and then make offerings to the 5 Buddha families in the different chakras. In the crown chakra being Varachana, the Buddha family, to which offering of nectar is given, offering of salt, purification of obstacles, accumulation of all merit. Then the Amrita, the nectar falling from the crown to the throat, to all the heart, the navel, and the secret chakras, in which there are respectively different Buddha families, and Amitabha, the Lotus family, Ratnasambhava, the Vajra family, Moga Siddhi, the Kama family, Ratnasambhava, the Jewel family, and the Moga Siddhi, the Kama family, respectively in the different chakras. And to each of them there's the offering of the Amrita, the offering of the inner silk, whereby obscurations are purified. One gives rise to the 4 blisses, and the 4 inseparable blisses which give rise to that state of primordial awareness. So there's this joy, supreme joy, a special joy, and spontaneously born joy, which give rise, which in a way then transform to that primordial awareness realization. So there are many details to be given on this topic of the Ani Yoga, but that would take a long time. But one should understand that the fruit of this practice is that within one very lifetime one can attain the state of Buddhahood. So then, the very peak of all the teachings of the Tantra, that most supreme vehicle, of which there is nothing more supreme, is in fact the Ati Yoga, the teachings of the Great Perfection. So this section of the Ati Yoga, the Great Perfection, has different subdivisions. The outwardly the Sunday, the mind class, inwardly normally the expanse class, and secretly the Manakade, the quintessential class. Then Yangsang Lalame. And then that again incredibly secret, that unsurpassable state of power. So there, in fact, there are four classes being the mind class, expanse class, the quintessential class, and that unsurpassable class, which is referring to the Choying teachings. But in order to do these practices of the Ati Yoga, they're in degrees of secrecy. The first, Sunday, the mind class, takes much longer time to practice and to get the results from. So in fact, the Manakade, the quintessential class, is the most expedient to attain the realization of the Rikviyeshi, that primordial awareness state of one's intrinsic awareness. So in fact, the teachings of this century, the teachings on the nature of the mind, one shouldn't think of separate from the teachings of the Great Perfection. They are like that introducing into the Great Perfection view, and they would be essential to have them reporting at the beginning of the Yeshi Lama practice. This Yeshi Lama, that unsurpassable state of the primordial awareness, begins with the practice of the Rushin, which is that practice distinguishing between samsara and nirvana.
나는 남도 매봐서 근데 이렇게 이시들 하나만이 이렇게 이시 똑다나 이렇게 이시 체크 대야나 체크 톱이 열 말에 근데 저거 체크되는 이 라운드 때니 근데 나라세 체크 톱 다 만나라 떠나시 그 검사이나 검을 뭐 지가 알잖아 다 옛날에 뭐마잖아 나라도 찹사 말이야 너 되나 너나 지진이 저거
So one has to come to understand the root of this mind, since it's through the power of the afflicted states of mind that we give rise to the various afflictions of greed, longing, attachment, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, pride, and thus get caught up in cyclic existence. And through coming to an understanding of the cause of this mind, which gets involved in these dualistic conceptions and afflictions, one has to develop that state of that awareness free from the work of the mind, whereby one can give rise through practice to the Vipyashi, that state of the primordial awareness, intrinsic awareness state, which is none other than the Dharmakaya when realized, that truth being realization.
나라도 체크한다 가냐서 나라 생각사 맞잖아 거라 잠지고 있지 세민이다 그 생각사도 인심 지쳐고 생각사 맞잖아 가는 게 지금 돈이 되면 성지 공부도 좀 가리 가고 그 성지 공부도나 생각 더 거래 이 야만이나 생각 더 거래 뒤다거든 생각사한테 저쪽 같이 말해 저 같이 뭐지는 생각을 거냐 가가지니 여러분들 다 같이 더 만나라 됐다 생각 저거 지금 따와. 말은 생각하면 저거 지금 생각을 전설이 필요.
One should come to understand that the mind is the very root of the Dharma of religion. One has to cut through this work of the dualistic conceptualizing mind to give rise to that awareness state. And through that awareness state, which is within each and every being, one that can attain that state of enlightenment. If one doesn't cut through the conceptual and analytical negative tendency of our mind, then we have to continue cycling in cyclic existence from one state of consciousness to the next, in a state of confusion, a state of miripa, a state of unknowing. So if this happens, then one may find one's consciousness in the lower states of suffering in the conscious realms. If one doesn't practice to attain the development of the realization of that pure state of one's awareness, which is that state within each and every being, which is that state free from the dualistic work of the mind.
그리고 거기는 남도 탐정 장가 남도 프라산도 녀모에 다 탐정 산도 맨도래 근데 이렇게 시고 뭐가올리 이렇게 시 녀마 틀리 좋아하는 이렇게 시고 뭐가올리 근데 이렇게 시 뭐가올리 하나도 그런 거 같아 체크도
Choying, repeat
녀마 틀리 좋아하지 남거 녀마 틀리 안그는 거 같은 말이지 녀모 같은 데가 있나 근데 그리고 녀마는 그래서 어떤 정말 저기 녀마는 이제 만원도 녀마가 상대 자산한테 그리고 그런 집을 하오려고 집을 하오려서 정말이 체크하고.
So we have to separate the understanding of Sen and Ripa, the Sen being the mind which is caught up in subject-object distinction, dualistic conception, and afflictive states of mind. We have to develop that which is free from this work of this mind, this dualistic, analytical, afflicted mind, and develop that state of awareness, the Ripa, that state of one's intrinsic awareness of which can develop the realization of the Yeshi, that state of primordial awareness. So one has to practice, it's a meditation that needs to be done, and through the strength of meditating on one's intrinsic awareness state, one slowly develops the strength of realization in it. And this awareness, which is that awareness each and every being has, free from the dualistic conceptual mind, which is that empty, clear awareness, is developed slowly until it rises in strength to the state of the yeshu, that state of primordial awareness, at which time it attains the state of enlightenment within itself. In fact, it's similarly said of it being like the sun, which is always there, and the clouds being the afflicted dualistic states in our mind, and the clouds being cleared away from the sun. And this is the simile of us in our practice developing that realization of our own intrinsic awareness and attaining enlightenment through it. Yes.
Tela jomam secretary tamna tela joma chibo madan rama secretary tamno changu yongkamar majama shasana yongkamar teni ti tanda de maro zam gama topsin shagum chibo na ti tanda arikwa da tanga machibo nyoma wa sajibo tanda de topsin shagum chibo tin topsin shagum de china teni nyoma wa tanda mara nyora nyora arikwa ya shi chere sone te ru gi shi da ha wali yong te saji kongo na topsin lam da ha wali yong yo tela jamja da hajam ka che barmada teni 이제 남아도 돈이 되면 세트 돈이 되면 비자선을 받는 말. 얘가 뭐다 되게 좋아지고. 근데 도시에 샤금에 들어 지고는 정치부 돈 어디 들어가지고. 또 들어지지 않아 가셔.
So these teachings are incredibly powerful, and yet just to receive them and not practice them is of no benefit. One has to incorporate the practice to develop one's realization, beginning with the teachings of the cemetery, the teachings of the nature of the mind, the practice maybe of the Yeshi Lama, that and practice of this text of unsurpassable primordial awareness, then continuously to practice within one's daily life, placing in one's state of intrinsic awareness, occasionally doing retreats intensively like the Shalgom retreat. That Shal means the teaching on the state of this Rigpa, and the Gom, the meditation, so that the teaching and the meditation go hand in hand, so as not to make any mistake on the path, which is stressing that one has to really practice continuously in order to attain the result. It's not enough just to receive the teachings, but to continue through to realize them.
얘네 내가 담아도 담나 너무 저가 전부들로 내가 다 송아리 저 단다 양상 나나매 받으리니 저가 전부 저저 주고 다가 말아 단다 도거들 지요 저 샘데 단자에 거기 왔다나 도거를 단다 용가 말이야 도거를 말이야 라미 샤거를 말이야 되니 도거들 양상에 단다 너무 샘데 단자 보고 샘데 야고지 단자 더위 도거들 양상하나 도거가 나와든 감을 용죠 도그가 나와도 다 장게 현는지 마음나 ರಂಗ ಮುಖ ತಾಸಾ요 ರಂಗ ಮುಖ ತಾ나 본진 잡으래요 다 너무 들리는 장마다 제르모네 장마다 자카토나 말이죠 진짜 뭐라 ರಂಗ ಮುಖ ತಾ사요 때나 때네 야고치 이야는 뭐잖아 나가 성서 거지는다 마음한다 이인는다 때나 통거 ರಂಗ ಮುಖ 통거 tene te ayu driva tar no ya salang yonde yara ko phela no ne te danga hong ge yan mo jana danga de no tham je sanji shankar ma da tani chaje on ma je te no tham je sanji shankar re sanso ba shayam ko ra aranga no ala shasa u tin ma ra sanji shankar jayin khan la so ka mo ke thong tene tin ma ha jo gona na ge sanji da ra sanji shankar mo tene che ka ganda zo ne tene tendara jawa shedro la so mo ra rang mu ke thong chen da ge thong yong teri da da bhar chi to sara tene rana sheli da da no ti na tene har sanji shankar thala se shamje jamar to da yo ma so mi nang ge so ha jong so che mo ji ta na yo tera da pa che mo ta ji de mo yang so ge jan da ma na cha par pa de ta na yo rana ge nyam sa len na che chi li ja 린데 자리 졸리 소지 콤보타고 마로도 디제 카타고 린데 요아마 내 파라 땅으로 나가게 자나세 땅 되는 마로도 체크 탐도 어디 토교도 짓다나 자체 바꿔야 요. 양서 렌터나 그러는 거 양서 렌터나 떠나 요.
Itu maksudnya texture mari.
Ah.
Kalau texture lah maksudnya.
또 저쪽에서 손을 덮어 댔더라고.
So in fact, the Great Correction has in the quintessential class, it's mainly the texture, which is that cutting through of the dualistic conceptual mind and placing in that awareness state, free from the dualistic conceptual mind. That is developed until there's stability in realization of that awareness. Once there is stability, then one can go into that unsurpassable path, which is referring to the Turgel practice, or that instantaneous path. And this is a practice done with when using rays of light and through the eyes, one actually comes to see before one the manifestation of one's own awareness in the forms of drops of various designs just occurring before one. One may see within the drops, cross doges, lotuses, different symbols of enlightened awareness. One is able to purify non-virtuous accumulations through the strength of this practice, which is incredibly powerful in that one is actually seeing a reflection of one's own state of awareness before one, which develops further with practice to actually seeing the enlightened awareness beings before one. The primordial Buddha, Kuntisampo, the Shitra, the peaceful rockfall deities, all these groups actually occur before one's very eyes, so that one's whole surrounding actually physically becomes a pure land in the way one is perceiving it. One through the strength of this one's awareness state being projected before one, and uniting with this awareness, then one totally overcomes the force of this materialistic body, and in the very lifetime, the time comes for the death, one's body just dissolves into rainbow light, just leaving the hair and nails behind.
그래서 다때 마 아나 아때도 젠사라라 그때 냐냐고 샤나 마스터 그러고 냐스텔레나 라마 담바시 그러는 그 냐스텔로 내가 지금은 냐스텔레나 하고.
So today, this morning's session has been just a brief presentation, overview of the path of Tantra, what different practices are involved. It's up to you as individuals to come to the Lama to request these teachings and to get them fully transmitted in details, and then to go and to practice them once one has received the full teaching of them.
되니 나라도 가서 먼지를 못 쳐도 돈이 되건데 저는 정말 그 치든지 때나 용이 되건 이건 좀 알아. 니가 내가디 나라도 머리 돈은 모두 상고 도시에 섬여라. 되니 랑게 단도 산지 공부지 더나 상이 될라 상을 요거지 당 되니 치라 지 냥스는 다다 머리디라게 산지 공부지 어떠와 상이 될라 상을 던져 너냐 나와.
So we've all attained precious human rebirths. We will attain a precious human rebirth. At this time is a time to be aware of the potential you have, to be aware of the different potentials for developing spiritual realization, which is presented the different paths, and to know that there are different means and different lengths of time through different practices whereby one can attain a result. And it's up to oneself to go ahead and to practice to attain such a result.
다서 멀리 찍고 니라게 생각도지 타고 지나 쓰질래 타고 타고 그러다 너네 시사지 타도 생각도지 타고 니 치에니까 안저가 잡고잖아 이런 거만.
So this opportunity to receive the teachings of the Tantras, the Vajrayana teachings, is incredibly rare. It's something which is not going to be available again and again, as was told at the beginning. But the fact that these teachings don't come to this universe always, it's up to us in this lifetime to go ahead to practice these teachings if we wish to attain the goal. They're there.
다다 치료리 다도지 살아 걸어지나 선지 공부 덕지게 팔지나 되는 게 선지 공부 덕지 딴데 되어 더를 선지 탐지고 떠나 정는 다시 니게 딴데가 비용 거를 또는 지대 거라니 치고 재미 사회 치마래 나라 간다 있는 사회 진놈바 마치가라 사자공이 넘바 되어나라 나로도 그거는 내가 말아 넘바도 보지인데 더 말아 되게 그리다가 남자 골마치가 잘라가 쳇다고 말했더니 내가 연습 거리면은 전나 저 파마 간다요. 나도 뭐지 통통지면 돼요. 뭐지 통통 뒤통통가 누가 먹게 먹지네. 저시만 나서는 저 코나다고 말도 오게 잡아야 말. 나도 되는 말은 로고라고 저는 그때 들라가데 먹게 먹었을 가지. 대단하게 선지 공부 도저게 던지나 뭐라도 때데 선지 공부 도와래. 내가 하나 찍고 내가 너는 약간 말아. 그렇게 돈다는데 내가 성공을 못한 거.
So one should realize what every one of you has this potential for fulfilling the meaning both of yourself and for other beings. This is a precious opportunity we have whereby we can, if we wish, go ahead and practice these teachings and attain enlightenment and thereby benefit these beings. However, if we don't realize this opportunity, we allow ourselves to just get caught up in time. This life is but short. We all have to die. Death is imminent for each and every one of us. We should realize this. We should contemplate the preciousness of this present life we have. The reality that it's but here for a short while, just like a guest who comes to visit and then has to leave. This life is here and then it will go. So we have this opportunity to practice these teachings, to attain enlightenment ourselves. It's not something which is just there for others, it's something for each and every one of us that we can incorporate, we can transform our own realization to that state of enlightened awareness. Yes.
그나 성을 시리 정도 니들이 지도나 지라와 그나 지리 다시 떨어 해서 그나 지리 되니 디도 요 셔로 정말 시도야 정말 그런 무슨 노르지 정도 나오는 시작했어. 그봐. 때문에 되니 성을 시리 정도 하던 디와다. 그것도 나가서 뒤쪽으로.
So time is up for this session to be ended. She will continue at 2 o'clock, incorporating the teachings with Palmo and Baba, who actually brought these teachings. There'll be time for questions if people have any questions on what's been presented so far. And then the session end of today or tomorrow will be actually begin doing some practice together also. So now we'll just dedicate the merit, again, not just for our own self-benefit, but rather that we're coming here for the benefit of each and every being, being able to be there to enlighten. So if we want to read the prayers in English or say together on page 3. Samande tamje zirvani, tomne nirveda nasheshin,
You know what this is for? This is for the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good. Could you do me a favor? If I can.
Roll these out and clean them.
Sure.
And put them back in.
Sure, I will. Yeah. You're going to leave this bag here then?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? Okay, thanks.
Arthur's to say Lama.
Oh, please extend my best to him too. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Okay.
Good. Good to see you.
Hi, Greg. I didn't think you would be here.
You didn't?
No, I didn't hear anything from you. Where are you staying?
I don't know.
Oh, you just got in today.
I just got out of the car and walked in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been very busy down in Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
I really didn't absolutely decide until Wednesday night that I was coming, Thursday. I was coming.
Sorry, should I go back with Russia?
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, you haven't met Serena, have you?
Yes, yes. You have? Up at,
Well, you don't mind them.
no, I should take this.
Did you,
Should I go back?
I'm wondering, is John Alexander home? Maybe you could stay with John. Let's just see if we can find
I
out.
told him to stay. Well, actually,
It's a possibility. Then when we see what happens before, between now and two.
I don't know. Shall I go with Laura? Shall I go with him back?
Sure.
I'm awfully tired. I might just get a place.
You can't stay on it.
Yeah.
I think she called him.
뭐지? 어쨌든 나가서 소지 선자 다가가 지타나션 선자 선자 대비 쳔거고 소지 가자 대비 약을 쳔거거라 쳔거거 타서 너무 못 손보는 걸 녀녀 저다 왔어. 너가 손도 손하잖아. 시켰다 맞아. 근데 마나 아직도 못 지내 맞어. 그러니까 그게 사지 저저는 저저라서 손하잖아. 옛날에 최고 마송을 최고 때 맞아.
So as we mentioned earlier, the three main Buddhas of the various different aeons in which time the teaching of the Tantra occurred. And the teaching of this age, this particular aeon, is the main Buddha is the Buddha Shakyamuni, Shakyatupa. And this Buddha of this aeon then taught mainly the teachings of the Sutrapara. Didn't teach the teaching of the Maha, Anu and Ati yoga, which was explained this morning, but taught just a very little from the Kriya, Upa and Yoga Tantras. That's it?
옛날에 전지 대체가 성을 치대로 통나 내가 당신 먹어요. 당신 되는 먹어. Then Java Shara Batata Sanji Shira didn't come. Then Nasaka Hardy Tanji Chip and Gagama. Then I got Sanji Kajata to be shaped and the Kalima.
So at the time the Buddha Shakyamuni emanated, there were many people who were non-believers of the teaching that he was propounding, and there were a mixture of kind of negative forces against his spiritual teachings, gods and demons of different forms, who tried to say bad things and stop the progress of the spread of the Buddhist teachings.
In the Maranzo, take the took a month until no more. I don't know. No other, no social, no Timon Raja Todola. Haja, she Chamura. Then he, some of us shaking the Matana. Then he, no shaking the Jacaranda.
And during this age, then, beings' afflictions are very strong. People have very strong craving attachments, very strong rising of hatred, ignorance, jealousy, pride. The force of these emotional energies are very forceful, and for them to be tamed through the teachings taught in the sutra system is difficult. Rather, they need the more strong methods that are propounded in the tantras.
Then Sanji Shajata Bagatirasumia. Now, Yanamudana, Sanjana Pansamaris, Sanjana Pantosamari, Matamjalaga, Netokumudi, but I know the Ladi Tamjaka, Malapachi, Chilla Pachi, Tinimaro, Yaman and Dimian, Maro Yaman and Dina only, the Hajamanga, no Chikas Galaga, no Chadutan Galaga, the Mali Lopichi, the Daji, Dana Goshi Soloni, Choying, he look at Chipper Samji, which about Moko, not the Hadi Tamja, around the Deva, come sometimes I would the Mucho Tama Samja, which about Jamasha around Jerdametana, the Yongi Hanson. He did Jitana, some of the sheets on there, the name Jitana Decha Jongure, that's only long time, the Kusha Shaka.
So, in fact, Buddha Shakyamuni prophesied that he was going to pass on into nirvana, into that state of enlightened awareness without being in the form of this world. There were many gods and demons, these different negative forces which he wasn't able to tame. Yet in 12 or 16 years after, from my passing on, there will emanate one in the center of the lake of Dharmakusha, who will be able to tame all the beings in the three realms, who will have complete control over the four elements.
Then Mumagayana Sanji Shankana, then he check his Sanji Tanji go on. Lonki Shanko, Lonki Sanji Tanji Lonta. Then Turkey Sanji Tanji Gadu that. Shaka Lonka took a tar, Shoji Java, Sin on Java Tanja Gadu Zalini. Then he Gonpo Homela. Then he Dan Damo on there. Then he Noah Serjanga, no more on the Tito. Choco some Jimachi, Mukanam Java, Gogmarta Mena, Soji Tamata Matago, Java Java, then Kadizan Shah.
So, at this time then, from the state of the truth being, the Dharmakaya, the Samovic being, the complete enjoyment being, the Tuku, the emanational being, the essence of all enlightened awareness beings, being invoked in the Lord of boundless light, Avitala. At this time, a teacher of the secret tantras was invoked from all the essence of all the enlightened awareness beings. lesson.
Then shoji jawa sidan chevi tagani ozentri gombo home ge tagara fo. Then gombo home ge then tagani yegi ga o dorji ga seji dorji ge yegi shi samba tanaji. Then yarje ga nosho orje ge yena so tamen down da zena ti nana pame dongo ge tonga di olor ge te chwa. 어디 nosho le aja ge gombo home ge tagani no de dorji seji dorji shi samba tani ne ma ngadan ozer do shaji o nga chima de tam jewa tani so bama ja o mara nosho orje ge tamen down do so ta ami na ma tani ke jichi de chwa
Opa mele yi khrile yang.
o home ge tagani chwa ma.
So, in order to tame beings of this time who had these very strong afflictive states of mind which weren't easily tamed, there was to emanate this teacher of the secret tantras. So this time, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, they sent out rays of light which were absorbed into the heart of the Buddha found this light, Amitabha. And from the Buddha found this light then emanating down this essence of all the condensation of the enlightened awareness beings from his heart essence into this world in the center of a lake. Then came the essence of Padmasambhava. Lesson?
인정 공부 home ge 뒤틀이 요노 마토 shoji jawa sidan chevi chemba da sewa nyasum tene taan chesti de deveroje gombo home ge tagara tene mara cheva shoji jawa sidan chevi jasab.
So, this emanation of Padmasambhava is really an emanation of all the 10 direction Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, having all their qualities, all their power, all their knowing, very representative of all of them, and was condensed, the energy was condensed through the light rays, through the Buddha found this light, and then emanated into this world system.
Tene nosho orje ge jawa unda bodu na ti tene jawa nga tene ku nyewas ate dorji mongoshana mondo jamso no le mongoshana mondo o mondo tene ku jamso no tamo de toyo ate ku lobo tran de no ti no mai to tene jawa shi tene jawa sami tene wara ku program pedi program dandeji tene jawa draboti sejine yero mutani jigat.
So this very essence then of all the Buddhas to find compassion, power and blessings then emanated into this lake, the Trimegilum, particular lake which was in the land of Ujjayana. And here at this time there was the king Indrabudi who was without a son, and they happened to find Padmasambhava within the lotus, and they took him and they made him their king.
Tene oji yek jankam tarchala chigel munjo ge sojo thamje ji chiga manachi tana chiwas.
So in this land of Ogin, then he was made king, and he also was able to propound the Dharma, the religious teachings, to the people of this area.
Tene orji jasa majiga ta orji jasa chongdali nga orji jasa chigutan da yona mare sama dorji tabu chinji kende be chi yona tene tanga dekama jasa pone tato sawa tala peso.
So Guru Rinpoche didn't just come to this world to be in the ordinary bounds of just one king of one kingdom. So after benefiting these people to some degree, he then realized for the benefit of the secret tantras that he had to leave this, and he went from the kingdom and went to the cemetery then of Silver Cell, the cool grove to the south. Listen?
Then the Tony, this is Jabanda, this is Jabanda, I'm not the Mug Jabama, Heritage Jabachini, Dr. Chimba Jabachini, Karama Tamcha Honda. Then no got hardly Tamcha Honda. Then no got hardly Tamcha, some of Doji Tampa Chiga, none. Karama Tamcha, then Chiga, the Tarajini, the dog, Yanamashka.
So Grimshay in the cemetery then emanated like a haruka, a wrathful deity, and through his enlightened power and activity he tamed the various beings, the gods and demons of the cemetery, the various dakinis. He brought them under his power and brought them into the teachings.
Then when I check the Gandazone, Uncle Dorjes and Water, Shana Dorji Jenny, Sona Gachi, Yosavia, Dana, Tabia Hashima, Kono Licha was there. A Dorji promote to Ajitana, Yos, Yaguna. It's on a Kono Licha was there. Then a Dako Tos of yours. Sona Gachi, the water, Shana Dorji with Delatasha. Then the Conto was up here. Then some of the Varshavi in the Dekana. Every other Lankana, Kodo, Da, Poma, almost the Nana, Kodo, Jaconism. The Cheddar only, Sayone, Dog Laka, Cheddar, Christian, then a Nasaj Diet. Then you could tell her. Then he, Naro, come down, yes. Come on, can't do my dear. Then I want the Magan. Ah, the two commons in it. Chodana Chesamare, Garmish to Gomez. Two commons in the Kajashi Samajana. The shit of Gomez. Chero, then a Chelmar de la March. Then you conquer the Chitani. Chekano, Pomote. Shara, Koniga, Dogalaka, Jojo, Kona Dogalaka, just a young longemes. Konga, Garambachi, Kola Zamtrostan. Then he, Koyara Jimmy longemetum, Koyara longemi, Chia longemetum. Then I won't tell her. Oh, Zamtrostan did. Chora Kinizi and Samara. Yeah, Chotana Jona, Mara than a Zamtrochi, Yossi. Koranga, Shana Chakuzino, Koranga, Dokan the High Shana. In Nana, Shadow Tambari, Jemper, Losso, the way I call it Tamar. Chola Zentr, Madola Jastic, Zentr in there, Mala Chola Tonji Zentr the Yossi, Ranga Kamal Shaditato, Nona Java Shadow Losso Corno, Jivayo, the Najiva. The mother, the dinner. One of the Kapasa. The one girl which you could do like that.
So Gurumshi then Pamasambala travelled on to find the Kondroma Leki Womo, the powerful lady of Kama, this particular Kondroma, which means Dakini. He was going in search of the Tantras, which came from Kuntisammu, the primordial Buddha, to Chanadoji, the Vajrapani, and this particular Kondroma will have this direct transmission from Vajrapani. So he was there on the pathway and he saw this lady and he asked where this lady was. And he didn't use the polite term of Kondroma, the Dakini, he just said, Kamo, where's this lady of space? And this lady then said, oh, she wouldn't tell him because he hadn't referred to this Kondroma in a polite way. And so Grimshe then she was lifting water from a well, and she had various buckets carrying the water, and he just kind of froze these into stone, so she couldn't move them. And so, he said, well, she replied to him, oh, but I also have something to show you. And so she took down her thing, she cut open her inside, and she displayed within her the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities.
Then yeah, because Kandoma Shagun, because on Kandoma Shia. Kandoma Shia doesn't allow some Tata permanent grace. Some of the time we don't prepare about it. Could tell us some of the Tabata Tago, Tata permanent grace. Then I almost the only last one, Kukundana persons. Kundana person, Pachero, you know, some of the time we don't channel this, Nichola Gridayos, then the Modo Chambers. Modo Chamber, Tanga, Jita Kanga Hatandana, Tachera, Gridayos, Tachera, Yoko Johnson. Coral Larson, Garaboche, who is the Gicharine, Kanomati, Kanas and Yeta. Who we Garaboche, Lamera, who is the Gicharine, Kana Yeta, Document.
Di Georgie Palmo Kitubole.
Ah,
Georgie Palmo
Georgie
Kitubole.
Palmo means is the president.
So this lady who showed the historical deities with him, in fact, was the attendant of this Kondroma, Lady Momo, the powerful lady of Kama, who was an emanation of Doji Palmo, Baja Bahari. So this lady then said, well, Rinpoche explained to her that he come for the benefit of the secret tantras in this world. So the lady led him to see this old Kondroma who is now pretty old. And she met him and immediately transformed him into the letter Hum and ate him.
Then you go good. That Java Sheto Yons, the Honga, Adamba, the Chizo, no, she did the Natama, the Rimchi, Najima, she said, Java Sheto Yons, the Java Sena Java, she wrote a Java, Tanchakola, didn't come on and Junker Sashin, it didn't know.
So rather than having the initiation stage by stages like we do, Rinpoche received instantaneous empowerment within. He was empowered to the various different peaceful and wrathful deities within her very being. He met them.
Then you come to Mangani Mara Tajas.
Then she expelled him down from her vagina with rays of light.
Yeah, then it can't go a long time. That's a sort of vegetable cheese. No, certain Tangela, 15 inches, Sanji chicken, some of the chico, such a night of Pentosare. No, the 100 times in that Tosare, then it getting a county chair, some other Pentosare, how learn Omala Saba, Ganga and Jita Mayla Saba, some of the vegetable chicken, Tosare, then the Norton. Then he checked out the shit of one, some of the Chimoyo, not like a honey over to each other, sharing with the long songs. Checked out the shit of what they are. Oh, kind of my long time.
So, this Kondroma then, who had been waiting for when she arrived, she was fairly old, was really pleased to see him and said that he would in fact be able to propound these Vajrayana teachings to benefit all beings within 3 realms of cyclic existence. He will be able to teach not those just on the human realm, but also those gods, nagas, the water spirits, all the different forms in which consciousness was. And she advised him that he go on to this particular Choying, where there were these other Kondromas, call it the Choying Dushi Saka.
Oh, then it's Choying Della, Nemo Ocho, 아자 참고 절대 통화 매 말고 그래서 절대 석자 좀 와서 지서 로이드 저 쳐보지나 대요하네 한이 먹고 건다서 뜻이가 노세가 한이 먹고 가도 가서 먹어서 떠나지는 말도 이제 그 시간 좀 있어서 떠나지는 요
So this particular Choying was a place that beings were unable to go. In the daytime, it just really intensely radiated light, and in the nighttime, it was surrounded by flames of fire. In fact, it was a place of abiding of the flesh-eating dakinis, and nobody was able to go near them.
Then 공기 때문에 then 한이 탈전지 한이 탈전가 다 한이 탈전 콜라 초전 같은 때는 then 구셔라도 한이 탈전 하더니 땅나다 then 한이 탈전 그 콜라년 저런 그 선지 담아 정말 말하면 저런 로봇이 저라 샤지지 이제 then 공도 then 나서 그 한이 탈전 땅송하고 then
Thanks a lot.
땅송 되는 치종
So Gonpo went to this place, and through many miraculous displays of his enlightened activity, he was able to detain these beings. They offered him then to protect the teachings, to become as protectors for the Buddhist teachings.
그래서 어떤 절대 되는 거 너무 더 최소 한이 먹고 제가 다시요. 가능하리 이제 먹어. 근데 정말 내는데요. 내는 영어고 서치가 되라. 완전히 맞춰 생각 하디 단축 맞춰지 못. 그 내는 영이 되라 다시고 또 거기 단축이야. 근데 나도 단축했다. 방가를 뭐지 배도는다. 제대로 나랬는데 이 강가가 절대 되는 거 말아서 런보치 돈들 런보치는 너가 못 먹고 지금 대체 먹으시라. 예, 런바 이제 세게 좀 아예 좀 올라서 총거 좀 올라서 티노나 대가 뭐라 먹어 줘 가가 런보치 말아. 되죠.
세게
세게 좀 되나? 너가 대체 디잖아.
So in fact, this particular Choying, this place guarded by the flesh-eating Kondromas, was a place where the Kondroma Leki Wongo, he previously met the Doji Palmo emanation, this powerful lady of Karma. Kondroma had put many treasures under guard of these other dakinis. However, they then came to realize that this was in fact the being Padmasambhava who was to propound these teachings of the secret tantra. And so the Kondromas, the dakinis, then gave him these various treasures from within the Choying. They were various vessels, some of gold, some of turquoise, and within them they had the teachings of the Vajrayana.
되는 사무고 생각을 해서 되는 알라라 생각을 해서 되는 어제 뭐에 나서 맞도 뭐에 뭐 다른 뭐라 해서 되는 말은 뭐라 생각을 해서 그다음에 다음에 뭐 타서 사성인지 된거 컨텐츠라 되는 생각을 해서 그 치고 뭐서 치 그러지.
So Gonpo took these teachings of the secret tantra and he propounded them to limitless beings in the God realm, in the Naga, the water spirit realm, in the human realm, to consciousnesses not without having human form. In fact, all beings in the three earths, he taught these teachings.
되는 제대로 컨트롤 거 제대로 컨트롤 거라 나다 타워 나다 잘해 그걸 선제가 그 전에 잡아를 했다 잡아 그걸 선제고 잡아를 못 못다 근데 선제 타자라 상을 같이 손타서 나는 잡아 못 못다 제대로 카메라 거라 나다 타워 리턴 처음에서
So Gonpo Padmasambhava then emanated in mainly in 8 main forms, but in fact in countless forms. In fact, the 8 particular names of his main emanations, and these went out and did many miraculous enlightened activities for the benefit of beings. In fact, there wasn't anybody equal to Padmasambhava in his extensive enlightened activity and action.
Then some Jakarta, Mama Soji Shadatabi, Tamba, Nido de la Donna Momona, Donna de la Dra, Sanji Chitarkamaji, Sherok Panta, the Jar, Panta, the Momola. He is Sanji Chimomona, Nevaza. Then he called Jakarta also Tasuri, the Panta Momo Stobai, he Panta Tache, Gurli Ko Stoba, then Zemtan Rabai, Zemtaka Koro Matap, then I tell Soji Tamashara, Momosoi. Soji Tama Momo and Nusara, Kushara Momosoi.
So, Guru Rinpoche then, with his skillful enlightened activity, went everywhere in these different places, in India specifically, where there were many enemies of the Dharma, of the Buddhist teachings. Places where the Buddhist teachings had first been propounded a little bit, but then had declined. He was able to again make these teachings strong and propound them. Lesson.
You got the Jagar Dorji Dana, yeah, Shara Murtawarika. Not Shara Jagar Sona Yojera, Ruma Shara Murtawarika, Karnal and Nuktam Yanore. George tells you, Paramedic. Then the Dorji Dangara, Koso Chetam, Mumu Chashar, or Hakam Mumu Shijar. One I said, Kuna came in with the Shiro Levels of Sarah. Hakam Hamchi, Shota, Koso, the Chap. No, I told you that she can't move with it. We have also Sarah. Jagar Sona the Tomoja.
So many of you may have been to India. When you've been to Varanasi, to Bodh Gaya, these different places where the Buddha was. And in fact, all these big places were destroyed often by the non-believers. There was this great, incredible Buddhist university of Nalanda, which now is this but in ruins. There were many different Buddhist places around Varanasi and such, which got totally destroyed by the non-believers.
Then the Jagar Dorji Dana, you call the Garam Shon, the Jagar Dorji Dana, yeah, Shero Murtabaga, or Noah Soji, Chela, Tobachin, Tama Jaja, Tobachin, or the Momot, Shawaga Momot, Noah Momotoni, then he Tama Jaja, Tamarazo, Chorovichi, Maragashi, the Lama, Tobacco, Shago, Shelly sit on the ship the Debaina, Tama Tarjachi, whatever the Tama Najishi is, Jagal Dorji Danga, Tama Mumacha. Tama Mumachini, Danga Noah Soji, the part of the Kalikasu. Shero Shaw Hajmayar.
So, at the place of Bodh Gaya, which is called in Tibetan Dojiden, then many hundreds of Panditas met both non-believers and believers, and they had a debate on the truth of the different doctrines, and they debated so that they were having great difficulty for the propounding of the Buddhist doctrine at this point. That's it.
Then Shamaja, then no Panta that is so the Della, Kandomat Galontan. Kandomat Galontan. Then Cheram the Tunajini, Tamaja Shata, no Sanjit Tama Menadosare. Then 那时候这个朋友，人家这参加了呢，记得，但是呢，手机他这个手机上现在叫这玩意，等于个我起码没地里叫的地气的，就我这哪让这样的，刚那样头发没把，起码当嘛，怎么当嘛，都是甚至没吃饭的呢，那当这些嘛，怎么能拿手机这个他妈全这，全都我上班的这下来。
So that one night when they were in this debate, it seemed like they were going to lose. This one of the Buddhist Panditas had this dream in which a Kondroma, a Dakini, arose before him and said that indeed they were going to lose this debate to the non-believers unless they invited this emanation from the west of Ogyen or from the cemetery Sangali, who was one with incredible skill of enlightened activity, who could perform limitless miracles, and that he should be asked to come. That's it.
이 바리다디 저우디 들어라 그래. 근데 너무 상처 사과신 거 점점도 담아지나 말아서 단대시 하고 말아. 그 별거 말아. 때 시에 가노마 대시도 가노마 별거리. 제가도 단대 진에 와고 말아. 제가도 그렇다고 말아. 너무도 서로지 말아. 제가도 녀마도 기니니. 다 너무 가시가 제가도 소반도 참작시. 제가 와서 소반지 열어. 또 참작시 전혀 저도 고등 와서 적그린 들이니. 자셔. 되니 녀마도 샤리니. 하다 지니 그 너무 그 녀마도 기니. 이 녀마 제가도 아니 그런데 신들시 자답시 쳐라도 뭐자. 되니 이 녀마디 셔봐. 제가도 녀마 세가라. 가가 그 호인들 좀 하시면 돼. 되도 잡서 와달라서 봐. 셔트나 제라. 구단된 지용 거지. 되니 셔트서 와 전부도 구단된 지용 거. 맞다 시주단된 지토고 말해 나서.
So this Kondroma saying that this was in fact enlightened awareness being of all the condensation of all the interaction enlightened awareness beings, had incredible miraculous display and enlightened activity, should be invited, that they were going to lose in this debate, so that they should tell the others, the non-believers, that they wanted to have a rest for a week or so, and that this Kondroma herself would invite Gurumshi to come, but they should set up a nice throne, have umbrellas and burn sweet smelling incense, and she would invite him to come. Is that it?
근데 제가 저렇게 셔가지고 나 거기서 장례지니 다 다른 상처서가 전부 장례지는 표제를 다 거기서 장례지다. 나리 타서디 나가니 야란 내셔서 정가로 자라 옥 건강에 너무나 저는 만나서 저거는 또 그러는 데마라 되니 가도 칸로마디 서마치는 표고요. 회의대 공수 통통나 배송이 다 봐라 되나 맞잖아 뭐라 따위 처음부터 봐도 어떤 어제랑 하셨잖아. 어제도 다 봤다가 제 표현이 공수 쳐다봐셔. 이게 내 공수 또 만들어지 다 맞다. 저런 표현을 요거 줘서 소지게 다 맞게 할 건데 아까는 저는 제라한테 야라시 잠기는 것이야. 근데 공부했다. 저는 말이다. 저 제라도 다 맞게 저렇게 말해. 땅아 해서 근데 제라도 센터 먹고 근데 다 제라도 내가지 제라도 다 지금 마셨다 사람이다.
So on the 10th day of the Tibetan month, the morning, they'd all prepared, and then they saw from the distance this white cloud, this dot of radiant light coming, and indeed Gurumshi Padmasambhava was coming in space and came towards them in incredible miraculous display, having great beauty, was invoked and put on the throne, and then they explained how they were in such trouble, the Buddhist teachings were about to be trodden over, and he replied to them not to have any fear, and that he would help us.
그래서 얘네 저랑도 선인들이 소바지지 시거든요. 나 탐탐하게 소바지라. 얘네 저랑도 소바지라. 저랑도 강국 가시 저 저장에 저랑도 저번 제타도 나왔죠. 공 나왔죠. 공화 니 저랑도 그렇고 공 뜻이 공원이 저번 제라 근데 저번 잡고 거스 더 그래야지. 근데 신년성이 이 저번 제라 나 나는 거기서 들어가 다 나는 나서 저 살서 다 나는 저번 제라 그렇게 되지. 근데 신년성 저번 제타도 나만 하지 직자리다도 나 나와서 왜 조심해서 시무샤는 표현하면서 반드다도 음악 고마요니 세마샤마요니 치도도 세마샤이 용게되게 근데 또 봐보면 저는 대체로 와서 맡아 제가 와도 들어가고요. 저는 저리다 가도 괜히 저는 너무 갑자기 되면 다 이제 가고 막으니 치도도 저랑도 내가 좀 고마요는 선을 나거든. 저랑도 가리나 다 또 같이 지는 마타와니 근데 싫어와 당시 놓아서 지는 그 싫어와 그렇게 지는 거.
So then, Pablo Baba asked the various temples, those knowledgeable ones, then to during the debate, which was to continue, to meditate on him above the crown of the head, and to go and tell the other side that they were ready to continue, so they did so. And then next day when they met, the debate was incredible in the way that the Buddhist Panditas just were able to have arise in their mind the most perfect answers that the other side were totally astounded, because they said, how come before you didn't have all these answers, and now you suddenly have all this knowledge to say, and through the power then of the debate, all of the non-believers were immediately converted to the Buddhist tradition.
근데 그거 좀 근데 다 치시하는 마타와니 다 뭔가 놓아서 그 제가 그래도 근데 전체장 그 가고 그 샤와가 언제다 무슨 방가라 비슷하지 그걸 전체가 싫어하는 돈 전체도 담아요. 근데 공부 전체가 나가다 보면 강가 통화 사서 사선선이 근데 그거는 근데 또 잡고 쇼기요. 또 잡고 쇼기 다 연금 당초도 토저 여러 진이 매번 그러니까 너와 선지선가 체가 그렇더라죠.
I Kempo le nang ke la pesa on quand je me topa nang ke la pesa. Quand je Kempo chik nang ke la pesa.
그럼 시간 걸어.
Chi.
시간 걸어 버도 그거 좀 단에 통하고. 근데 다tamaz마다 뭐뭐뭐라나 야 뭐라.
Ai na yam kumaso.
근데 잠바도 강가 노아가 체라 그랬어.
Kare tanga mapasa. Quand je nang ke la pesa kani mala yam so.
그거 나가라 된들던 거니 거기 올라쳐. 떨어지는 것도 말아. 살아.
Di multiple salon.
뭐 나가 봐서 말아. 그거 된들 거니 올라쳐. 올라서는 하고 근데 떨어지는 데 것도 말아 살아.
So then, four of the non-believers then flew up into the sky, because they also had these miraculous activities to show. But then Gurumshe did the mudra of controlling, and they immediately just fell through the force of him sending the light and Gurumshe did a talk to him.
된들 진이 토토. 알로토 되네 토고죠. 전화지. 점수달에 점수거리 완전 가가서.
So with this Gurumshe doing the miraculous display, the lightning and thunderbolts, they just fell from the sky.
다들 사람 뭐라고 다 남이 남한테 거리 남한테 좋아. 남한테. 되네 전화지. 되네 노아 선지 등의 치대 작가를 사천을 좀 가사가를 잡. 되네 스마트 치 뭐고서 전화지는 다 하자 뭐나 하자 영어로. tanda jina nima chaka yasana lorjara nima dachi ne shana garam ko chana tar sarji on mare o de tanda jina jagar saja de sama ga chi de de jagar khana lo ne ka la sama ga chi hada ma bu tar
Anyway, one could go on for a very long time talking about different miraculous displays that Guru Rinpoche did. In fact, when we go on for weeks and months and not finish, the limits of his miraculous display was unlimited all over in India and the areas around Tibet. Guru Rinpoche did incredible miraculous display, was able to convert people to the Buddhist doctrine in all many skillful ways.
저도 자갈 담로 이나 하정 오셔잖아. 딱 되면 그 자갈 거든다 처시. 어떤 장상. 되니 뭐 담로 전선 대대 앞이라. 내가 내가 가서 되잖아. 아.
Thì bây giờ sẽ nhắm lên rồi nhắm lên chứ chứ.
잠깐만요.
So, if people would like to relax a little bit, Tsedan would stretch.
machine will go to Michelle, then pull up any Johnson, no, no, so. Karma home goes. Then you mother goes. Karma home goes. That machine will go. Who goes? So Thomas, that's how it goes.
You want that right off?
So,
Because it makes the video look.
So at present, I'm sure it's been describing a little bit of the life of Padmasambhava as he emanated in his time. But actually, the potential of realizing that realization of Padmasambhava is here for each and every one of us for this here in our lifetime. And the essence of the teachings that Rinpoche always likes people to practice and come to a realization of are those teachings on the nature of the mind. She likes people to practice with the preliminary practices. So for about 5 minutes now we're going to have a meditation session together. For those of you who received the Mind Nature teachings, then you'll know the particular meditation. For those who didn't, and she says that you should place your awareness one with the sound of Hum and not go under the power of the wandering conceptual mind, but just place your awareness one with the sound of Hum. People should be sitting straight so that the natural energy can flow uncontrived, not uptight, but to have the spine straight is important. If you can sit in a 7-point Varachana position, or that's good. If you can't, just at least keep the spine straight. To be relaxed, breathing through the mouth, keeping the eyes open so as not to get into dull awareness, but keeping fresh, empty, clear awareness. So we'll all recite the Hum together. uniting our awareness one with it. And the recitation by people should be fairly loud, just to support, but not going under the power of the dualistic conceptual mind. So first bring out this breath.
Oh.
Central the watching the dogs or the go Lama Central Matamaka, go Shija Kalika, Jamada, Central Toy, nothing, go right up with that.
So the meditation we just did was one which is presented in the mind nature teachings that he gives, and it's best to be received in such a context as it comes with an introduction into the view of the great perfection. So for those of you who haven't received those teachings, they will be good to receive.
저는 내를 못지 남들도 다 잡히게 잡히다는 사람 요마 잠시 잡으면 잠시 잡으면 요마 남들거나 서면 자 뭐라 뭐라지요 그 성질이 담바래 sem전 대토와 탐 나쪽 그거 sem전아 셔와 그거 sem전 느껴요 저거 그거 하정 저거 그거 나서가 한에 탐저도 느껴요 내를 못지 남들도 셔리 정도졌더니요.
So, when we talk of Padmasambhava, we're talking about limitless, miraculous activity, enlightened activity, of which there is no limit, no end. It's something that there's a lot to describe about.
되니 또 먼저 지도 시와 천자요. 먼저 지도 시와 천자는 그래 시와 천자가 된거 있던다 그요. 저는 가서 많이 찍고 말이지. 시간이 정자들더라요.
So in fact, for as many beings as there are, in fact there are limitless beings within the billion fields which make up the 3,000-fold world system. Gurumshe emanates, emanation beings, for each and every of these beings to be guided on the state to enlightenment. Yes.
근데 저걸 그 소식에 딱 받아가지고 뭐 접은 되니 볼라피야. 볼라피 보고 저거 위단데치 볼라피 기타도 라카니 다 한리 몸보가 똑같이는 한리 몸보가 다 저걸 그 तनाग पांडा ता छमजे पोला फेकियो रे दिन ता ता बायो रे तो के योना गाना तो के हांडी थाचे दकिन जिक मारे तनी गाना तो तोमनी को मे बाजो को दे नाम को को जेका जी सारमा जंत दाई ने मे बाजो जी दे को के जंत तने छिक मे बाजो माता मोमो जिक टाडी छि दोनो कांगा को छोटे तने ने मे बाजो माता ने तनी थाम지 그 그런 거 아니야. Then Ganga Tanso, Chichum, Tarajini, Zentra Mongola will hand him over Tari.
So Gurumshe, after traveling various places within India, then was invited to Tibet, and on the journey there to Tibet, he had to meet with many gods and demons, with whom he had to tame because they were against him coming to Tibet, and he displayed many miraculous enlightened actions to tame them and make them protectors and guardians of the Buddhist doctrine.
Oh, then Sami period, Lasaka Sami period. Sami period, Sami Hakan Shan. Sami Hakan Shan is Sami Hakan that Muma Shan is Hani Shankamajas. Kanchan Bodhisattva Dishani. Junk Maji, 100 times the sheet. Then you got a much of here. Very much of it. Then he was hot of some the judges. People were sitting on Namkani, Kunga, Namkani, Gurjin, Chonga, Talajini. Then also got 100 of Deladini. People were sitting Gaga, no second chocolate, Hamza wrote the dear.
Who had already Nankala?
Oh, Namkani. Then he sorry, Hakan was Sandaja, suddenly. That the Namajana, no second hunting, sorry, Shangichiko. Then Then Sunday moment Talata. Sunday moment Kalajan. Then a church.
So once in Tibet, then Gurumshe founded the Sami monastery. First, there'd been the Bodhisattva invited to Tibet from India to help with this building, but he'd been met with so many difficult forces, negative forces, which didn't want this building of this temple, that they invited Padmasambhava to come. And when he arrived there in Tibet, then he had to tame all the different negative forces. And in fact, he went to the place of Hepori, where he performed a Vajra dance in the sky, whereby he subjugated, he controlled all the various different gods and ogres, or the various different negative forces of Tibet. And after this, they were able to construct this vast, great monastery of Sami with no problem.
Then Hakan Sami Hakan the John Tata Yamuta Mutam Chakastil Yara Hakan Sham. Then it Tamon Great Hamchak, Handi Mambu with Hakan Sham. Near a day, Handi Nigalanity, Sami the Yara Jean.
So having tamed the negative forces, rather than previously having destroyed this creation of this temple, the men in the daytime built, and at night time the different gods and demons also helped in the creating of this unchanging, spontaneously created temple of Sami.
나는 그 미팅이나 하는 게 하도 없고 딱뭐 전화문다와 하도 없고 됐잖아. 나는 그 신나 하루 샤바도 못 듣는 상황.
This temple, in fact, is incredibly wonderful. It's very hard to explain. It's very celestial.
Sani Hakan Shang, Nama Kaston Tete Shang, Zaga Ramni Chini so, then Nonkaga Hatam Chaka, Rumunda, Metapo Chanda, Sumcha Sassam Hadi, Hamu Mara, Metapo Chanda, Tanashi. Then Nanga Hatam Chaka Sonja, Hakashi, Hakan Shilata, Hakashi, Hakan Stamayarata, Jamada, Momozi, Gently, Momojitana.
And then finally, when they came to consecrate this great temple, the gods, there was a sound of cymbals in the air, flowers came flying, and the various enlightened luminous figures that were portrayed within the temple, some of them occurred outside, they turned inside, inwards, outwards, some of them rose in the air above the temple. That's
못한절라 서로 체크를 못 먹고 서로 치 하장 먹어서 전화진에 고소 양년치 되는 적신 제만냐가 나서 도마는 처음부터 제가 적신 제만냐가 아나 원하는 게 니가 상아 좀 돈을 그 전화식 그 시스템아 돈을.
So Gurumshe then propounded the Buddha Dharma, the teachings of specifically the teachings of the secret tantras to the king, to all the 25 disciples who all attained equal realization.
자그가 로 섬동 되자시 통계 보고 자 지치면 마시스 자 지치고로 시소와 나반다보다 못한다
Gathered Chuchiko gathered.
자 지치
So in fact, it's said that Padmasambhava emanated his many miraculous enlightened activities in India for 3,600 years, and in Tibet for 111 years.
근데 저기 제만이가 공소 소모드는 다 저는 냐다 따지는 자자 저는 준로는 자자 근데 최고도 말하지 공로 야를 째는 도는 자자 근데 진짜 뭐가 당겨요 이제 상지 이슈도 저와 벌어다 당선 다운 자지요 자만 공간 넘어대 야라 토사스나 저거는 벌어다 좀데 근데 다 나도 소리 다도 자지들 또 전부 지금 뭐나 그러지
Babachi.
프로 조금 몰라 거야 조금 나가라 마타고 조금 나와서 조금 토사 이건 조금 프로다더니 자마요 그 눈치만 자서 타서 또 자진데 하좀 통보리 뭐뭐 됐어 들어
So these disciples, specifically the main 25 disciples of Palmo, they all gained control of the four elements. They were able to fly in the sky, go unobstructed through rocks, to go upstream from water. In fact, Namkinimpo say it?
나 그냥 뭐 말이야 선지시
Sangyeche. And Sangyeche, one of them, then took a purba and flew to the top of this great cave and put it there. And even today, he says that there is this very purba to go and get blessings from.
되네 치마 벗어 보고 이거 보이 단자라 치마 벗어 되네 되네 마오 저서 이제 탑자라 치마 벗 때려비 소라 저ter비 저거나 저ter비 이 사나가 때비 되나지 대치 마오 지베니 되네 마오 와서 이제 탑지가 도나 되나 가서 가라 저 대치 공부비 이 마원은 공부 저와 대통령이 전에지 노용 내가 노자 친지든 가면 따뜻하지 마.
So then Guru Rinpoche went in all different areas, teaching the Dharma to beings, guiding them on the path to realization. He also hid many different treasures of many different parts of the doctrine in different places, sometimes in lakes, sometimes under the earth, in rocks, at different points for different treasure discoverers, his various different emanations to re-emanate at different times and discover and be able to continue the guiding and taming of beings and the development of all beings towards that state of enlightenment.
근데 저거 소도 들대 상지나 뭐뭐셔요. 그 가르스는 상지 저거도 가르스는 나와는 생전 담저거 뭐그 도나 뭐야 너나 그런 뭐 진짜 내가 쇼지 삼이 전치 부탁 되더라 저거. 저거 상지잖아. 저거 상지잖아. 거지잖아. 나 저거 나무나 스스로는 이제 사이드는 또 뭐뭐 자지요.
Shashi, isn't it? That Shabbat.
사이는 사이는 때 가서 가면서 뭐 거기가 저도 공간 밥을 살 때는
So in fact, there wasn't any place in the whole of Tibet that Guru Rinpoche didn't travel. He went different places, leaving his prints in footprints within the various footprints and handprints in the lake, the different lakes around. He left imprints of his body in the rock at different places, as a reminder of his enlightened activity to beings, as a way to help tame beings' mind on the path to realization.
아주 지하신 저는 상을 근데 공개 보나 베이스도 안도 베이스도 안도 총어머지는 초대 쳤다. 저 아주 첨보지가 초대 쳤더니 저걸 그 마다바디는 어려운 거 장면 초대가 자식. 근데 초대 선초답니다. 그런데 초대 체내는 점점 저거 점점 체내는 거죠.
Jimson tree.
아,
The such a kakakaka tree.
심해서 그 초대 쳤다. 근데 점점 저거 점점 쳐 너도 저걸 그래서 체내는 뭐 양초 디카 체체다 차시. 동상 안도는 어디냐마 내가 지금 내가 이거 소득 시대는
And in the land of Amdo, which is Samdan in
there's what's a blue lake, and in fact this is a place where water was said to suddenly gush from the ground, and in fact a swept land where there were 3,000 different families of nomads, and to prevent these from more people from getting destroyed by this water, Gurumshi took the mountain which is known as Mahadeva and placed this on the source where the water was coming, and thereby was able to protect the lives of beings.
Then chip the color from the Sharji Jojono, Sharji Jojono, Mama Jamango, Mama Terte, the Nami in Tamara, Mama Tongia, Hatter, the Chimney Tongo Madida, the Guachimojaga Tongo Madunda, the money, Pachaga, Tongani. So Chamo, the Chamo, the Chamo, you are you can't Sharji on the Zango Kuga, Mara to the water number, Hatter Sharji Chimo, Chamo, jungle, then a 내가도 그가 통은 정글 타랑 먹었잖아. 철학의 서지서서는 통통 누가에는 또 자지가.
So in fact, Pamasambhava left his handprint on this particular lake, and different beings, depending on their different karma, may perceive it in different ways. Those with very negative minds may not be able to perceive it, but he left his handprint in different places for people to come and be recalled of his enlightened activity and receive his blessings.
아들은 던져내. 성진 잡아서 제대로. 셔를 정전이 따리요 말. 아들은 너는 비상을 맞다. 지금 그러면 지난번에는 저 셔를 찾아서 들어요 말.
So this is just a very brief description of the emanation of Padmasambhava. In fact, it could be endless in recalling all the different enlightened activities which he performed for the benefit of beings. Tanaki, Nansaki Tsedan, that Visa Sayana Sina Tapina Tagurum Shekaka Maimamari.
그러면 가까워야 돼. 내가 하지. 나가자.
Is it Visa Tapina?
아.
Visa Sayana Tapina Tigurum Shek Chupoyere Mari.
저는 좀 보면 뭐 너를 잠깐. 저거는 좀 와요. 그. 되니? 저거 말하는 너를 잠깐. 그러지 그러나? 나는 가서 되잖아. 아까 참. 되니 그거 다 지나는 시간 시면 그거 저저 되게 잘.
So maybe we'll have now. Now, if people would like to ask any questions from the teachings which have been presented this morning and now, this would be a time for questions.
If the higher tantras are quicker means to enlightenment, why is it traditional for everyone to work through the lower ones first?
Well, I'm thinking the Naki Korananga, ta maha anuati the Sangila Jokotukure Mabe. Then he Karina Consuni Pachewa Tatombo Dolalam Jungare. Maha anuati the Sangi Koman Jokotukure. Karina Consatombo Dola Jungare Sigiri.
Dola Jungare. Ma ana atake yonda machinati tene dola jangara. Ma tena ma ana atake chapra shina tene ngava jangara. Machina dola jangara. Ma ana ata yoat kashiga hago ga yoa. Ne machina ronanga lawa karasona do sono do chancha sono de kare. Tene kita parmarto. Tene jana machina de do.
Basically, it's a matter that people are unaware of the teachings of the secret tantras. They don't have to just practice the other tantras first. If they're introduced to the higher tantras, they can immediately practice them. But many people may be unaware of these higher tantras and thereby practice them.
치 아가마에 말해. 선지 치래. 선지 치래잖아. 이거 대샤라는 거라. 대샤 너무 한번 더 상황 치잖아. 그런도 너무 좋은 말. 근데 가리나 사려요. 내가 그런 마 안에 아들들이 지금 뭐 냄새 장기보다 내가 약속해 줘. 한칸 보면 네 뭐거든. 손을 좀 했는데 너 천천 손을 너는 가 정말 뭔가 처마서는 맞아는 서지 못하고 그때 거기서 뭐가 지어 뭐가 냄새 장기보다 내 착각을 만들 거야. 그걸 너를 치아가면 막 선지 치아 와르잖아. 난 그런 거지.
So it must be understood that it's not saying that the sutra path is not a good path, but it's also a path taught by the Buddha. It's just a matter of expediency of progress towards that fruit of complete enlightened awareness, whereby the tantras are the expedient means, are the skillful means. Really, it's dependent on beings having merit that they have the connection with the tantras and are able to progress in the path, the realization with them. Other beings may not have the merit to meet with these teachings and be able to practice them.
So you could start Gati, it would work with that.
Di tombo di ati yoga jangne tini di jala shempa jangne yonga basically.
가는 정말
Tombo ati yoga jangne yonga basically.
아대요 그 동부지 정을 연결했더니 아대 그 장나 용가를 때 동문이 상가 최고시나 문로를 좀 되니 아대요 그 최고 연결시고는다 문로 맞아 동문이 나서시나 데려갈 거 뭐야 그러면서 너 그러면 잠깐 넣어주세요 데려 소소 뭐 잡았다 뭐 되나지나 이거 한 거지.
So in order
고마디나 고마시나 고나 소하고 내가 어디 무시 있다가 재미 공부하는 거 보라. 거기서나 내가 만들어서 떨어지고.
actually in order to attain the realization of the Ati Yoga, the view of the great perfection, one needs to have a basis of accumulation of merit, of purification of non-virtuous actions, and receiving the blessing of the enlightened beings. And it's for that reason that it's taught to do the tantric preliminary practices, which are specific practices which are skillful means for accumulating merit, purifying obscurations, and receiving the blessings of the enlightened beings. So just the Nundra in Tibetan. And that would go hand in hand with developing the view of the great perfection. Because if one tried just to singly meditate on the great perfection view without also continuing purifying and accumulating merit, it's hard to realize. Anybody else have a question?
이렇게 삼을 딱 지나쳐.
You said at the beginning of the answer that some beings may not have heard of the Dhamma teachings. Does that mean that it is more incumbent upon the student to request the specific teachings that they require, that they think they require, than it is upon the Lama to decide what he's going to teach? Because that seems what the question was commenting on, is that a lot of teachings that are given to Western people do seem to be clear teachings.
Jadi, contohnya kami kasih konsert tombol di sanak kita nyeng tu masuk, nyeng konsert tombol mana konsert talama di tri shumasong kita lebih konsert tombol tanah di ta anu atio mahayo da tri gugure tombol lama da tri gugure o konsert lama rangsing di sanak kita bersong di mare.
송가말 야라 치마시 라마가 미쳐 치샤라들이 라마도 가야. 그날 있으면 가야 와. 넘버는 그 사람이 라마가 치더라도 거기 라마시나 들으라면 송그라. 라미 마사나 라미 치고는 서서 거기라 사하고. 라는 게 너무 심어라. 와야.
Yeah, it's essential first to request the transmission of teaching. The teacher doesn't is going to give teachings without first being requested.
라는 게 신은 누구나 누구나 누가 지금 치고나 가리나 라미 내가 치러 치셔라. 되는 누구나 노송 그래. 내가 누구나 노송 그래. 누가 지금 거기서 나나 누가 지금 노송 그래. 라는 누가 가리요나 라미 송 그래.
So some people may wish to request teachings on the sutra path, some on different other parts of the tantra path, and whatever is requested of will be given.
그럼 내가 저러면서 그 여러 가지 야 그는 지금 와야 돼.
Jadi malam tu jadi tak kena letri sama cik tak bisa solat nanti gede segede. Tak malam nak kita tak di kan senang kita tak sama cik malam cik pasal nanti gede.
뭐를 치고
Ada.
그래.
Tak sang ni tak cik sama cik nak nanti gede. Sang ni di cik gede kini kena lesan tu gede.
그래도 자꾸 고거를 이제 샤나 시작해라.
Do you have a special thing you want to request?
I'm not real familiar with the teaching practice request to do practice with it as a purpose.
그럼 아주 샤고는 됐으면 시 점선이 온다. 양선에 또 말.
Barang nyamling hachang jiwa yomari yang ko barang le nyamling kari pentona ta barang di nyamling chegu beri.
그래.
Ta sangli di lamina jo chungwa sangli tini di rekonan bersha dina chim sona konser.
야야.
Tento beri.
야야. 다 산이 열어진 거지. 남이 난 저기 천디가 시작 거지. 모노이나 모노는 거 같이 시다 남이 난 저기. 근데 산에 마도 남이 난 저기 천정 시작. 근데 싫어? 그런 거 저건 완전 다 전부 다 그래. 완전 doctor 나 지금.
So I'm just saying that tomorrow in the morning he will teach the practice of abbreviated practice of Guru Yoga, which is one of the most essential parts of the tantric preliminary practices, which he will teach tomorrow morning, and then in the afternoon he will transmit a very extensive empowerment into Kamasamava, which has great lessons and which he hasn't actually given in his country.
Does the Ani Yoga system also involve visualization of deities, or is that just in Maha Yoga? And also, Maha Yoga, in what way is that different from the lower mantras if you're still generating deities and unifying with them and so forth? Does Maha Yoga involve any visualization of sadhana?
Jadi tak Ani Yoga nang Lama Cikgu gede segede. Atini niba tengah Maha Yoga ta di Kriya Upa Yoga ki kibra kari ale. Konsa ganga kirim ki Choying re. Jadi Maha Yoga nang sa talong le tili mikpo Cikgu Cikgu mindu.
마요가. 마요가 제일 많은데.
Tombo ta Ani Yoga la ki mikpo yerbe.
야야.
Jadi niba tengah di
Kriya Upa Yoga la Maha Yoga la Kebra Kariyere.
Deshala Moisha. Jaya Yoga, Lorma, Lo Mama Tukwa Mama, Lomina Songarva. Then Lo Teddy Chow, Jaya Songar. Then Lorem Chivala, Abashak, then Lorem Tomala, Jaya Abayokasha.
Di Chiva Malay, Kebra, Nyame Nangla, Doya Nangla, Konsaganga, Nakdongere,
Chabri, Kaka, Chabri,
Chabra Kariyere.
Chabri, Lunda, Tanga, Lagana, Chabri,
Chabra Kariyere.
Chabri, Cherum Kona, Chabri, Pemojo. Cherry is the Pasha Josie. One son, Sitchi, one son, not Sitchi. Then I'm over there. That's Chabri Chamuya. Mother, Zichi or Nati or Gonchi or Toshi or one of the same thing that then I Zichi or they never did. Kaka, Cherum Gomji Kaka.
So, your first question, yes, one does generate oneself in the form of enlightenment when practicing the Ana Yoga practice. In the difference between the three lower or outer tantras from three inner tantras is a difference in way of the visualization is done and the way the practice is done. In fact, the developing stage practice is a skillful means to purify the different ways in which beings take birth, whether it be through conditions of the womb or heat and moisture, the main four different conditions in which beings retake birth. It's purified. There are different factors which go into kind of very specific details, which the Canaan practice is working with, whereby the Maya is a more expedient means than the Kriya Upa method.
Do you
want to have more details? Great. It's quite extensive. If you're interested, there's a text actually which Ramji has been teaching on the care and there are many differences within these different practices, which it would take some while to explain. But if you want afterwards, I can refer you to something which will explain. Are there any other specific questions?
Yeah, did I understand that Lama and Roma are reversed in male and female, or just the colours?
They're reversed.
Yeah.
And so, Gangma Taramala, the Keming Kota Mona Kakayere.
Nicolas.
Salam Nangla Tag Yamata Romala Kaka Kakayere, right? The Kato Kakare or Kunsa Sala Kakare? Mariti Ania
Kakayar. Sala Volta Kakayar.
Mitabrashi Yabala Gamareti Yambala Roma.
Re. Tamoreshi Chola Yala Roma Karmos. Chama Moyona. Chimila Chama Marmoy Aina. Roma Karmoyona.
So it varies in the Roma Kapole Yele Yele. So
the red ganwa on the left side for men, and then for women that would be vice versa. So that would be the right side will be the red ganwa, and the left side the white roma.
땅땅나 땅땅나 런나서 땅나 그 이신제 사람나 마땅나 로마 가면 그 줄이제 살 정마마무도 철제 살 뒤다 가도마로 이르 뒤다.
So the way of these two main central channels, the white Roma then is said to be the source of the white essence drops of the male, and the red is the essence of the blood female essence drop from the female are condensed within.
That's the same in Avatar and Maki practices, or do they reverse? I guess. Is that the same in all practices, all those higher
Because the Dzogchen nang le kun se sa me po irve yo. Dzogchen ati yoga nang le sa ki me po irve yo male.
작은 거이 아때 요거는 그 가가 작은 게 되나요?
In the Ati Yoga, there's no separate visualization of channels. It's just within the Ani Yoga you have the visualizations of channels in the inner practice. So then,
이렇게 가는 가면 거기 어려워. 이렇게 가면 가면 장지 오나. 그런 매저는 그다 거기 가면. 이렇게 나는 가면 지와.
so in the Ati Yoga practice, the Rushin, the distinguishing practice between samsara and nirvana, there are different practices of many different things, but specifically there's that's the kind of like the Rushin is like the preliminary practices for the Dzogchen practice. It has different aspects, and it's not so much the same correlation teachings would have to be explained. So, people then have questions, and we'll dedicate a merit from this session, not just for ourselves, but for the benefit of each and every being. On page 3. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock, then she will be giving a teaching which is a practice, a meditational practice for which we all can do, and is an essential factor on the path of the tantras. And then at 2 o'clock, he'll be giving the empowerment into Palmo, for which there'll also be a sog offering, so people would like to bring offerings of food invite people who want to come along and join, and we can have a meal, pick a meal together if you would like. If people are interested in more extensive details on the life of Padmasambhava, there are 2 books put out by Dharma Publishing, which are real expensive on volumes of 9 activities. Mari, kan saya hafal tidak jemsun yang berguna, tidak ada jemsun yang berguna. In fact, the teachings of Padmasambhava are very extensive. This is called the Pemakatan, the Lotus division. In fact, there are 5 different sections of teachings on Padmasambhava.
People pass these in. Cheating. Witches.
So if anybody would like to make a personal interview with Rinpoche, if they want to call your house.
Number is 427
2952.
2952.
They could want, or maybe a few could be receiving if people want.
Rinpoche, Sunny Jogel, ne Ramazogi, ne Torme Chikarve.
This book is marked.
Yeah.
Would you do me a
Sorry.
favor?
What were you about to say, or
Oh, do that.
Yeah, but not for
can it happen at the end?
No, we can lock it up as soon as we're ready.
About meetings and then? Or
Are you good to lock it up?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, don't worry about the places.
It's all gamble.
She wanted the phone number to contact her.
Oh, no.
And I forgot to bring it to the airport with me this morning, so I thought I'd call her. 427-2952.
Right. You want to write it down?
Yes, I do. I'm very disorganized. Very disorganized.
Hi, Chin. I'm fine. How are you?
You know John? Phone number? Yeah. I just know if I like a code.
My neck and my foot back.
Yeah.
It's better though. I mean, I
How Joe too.
but it hurts. But I have to put more heat on it. Helping. Just a muscle spasm. My muscles are just very tight. It's like stuck putty or something. It's strange. Yeah, this isn't supposed to happen, but yeah, I'm going to. I'm going to put heat on it again, and that's really helpful. Yeah.
Some arnica on it.
Arnica. I have tiger balm.